Reinvention doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't appear because the calendar changes, or because you make a wish, or because you feel ready. Reinvention begins the moment you finally admit that the person you've been is no longer enough for the life you want to live. And if you're watching this, there's a part of you, maybe loud, maybe quiet, that knows it's time. 2026 can be just another year in a long list of years that blur together. Or it can be the year you break your own pattern. Most people don't reinvent themselves because they underestimate what it requires. They treat transformation like a mood, something that arrives when they're inspired. But real reinvention has nothing to do with inspiration. It has everything to do with discipline, inner strength, and the willingness to step into a version of yourself you've never been before. Reinvention means burning the old script, the one written by your fears, your past, and the people who told you who you're supposed to be. There is a deeper truth here too. Before you can change your life, you have to defeat the enemy within yourself. The part of you that procrastinates, the part of you that breaks promises to yourself, the part of you that chooses comfort over growth, the part of you that is terrified of becoming powerful, because power demands responsibility. This video is your guide to that battle, not the one outside, but the one inside. To reinvent yourself in 2026, you need 3 things: inner strength, ruthless discipline, and a mind that refuses to be controlled by fear. You need the courage to confront your weaknesses without running from them. You need the clarity to stop living on autopilot. And you need the honesty to admit that the life you want will require sacrifices you've avoided for far too long. There's a reason most people stay the same year after year. Reinvention feels like destruction at first. You're tearing down habits, identities, and stories that you've been carrying for a lifetime. But if you don't break the old version of yourself, the new one can never emerge. Reinvention is uncomfortable, but so is staying stuck. So is wasting years feeling like you're capable of more, but refusing to step into it. In 2026, you have a choice. Continue being a prisoner of your impulses, or become the architect of your character. This video will show you what it truly means to take control of your mind, to build discipline that doesn't collapse under pressure, to develop a sense of self that cannot be shaken by opinions, setbacks, or fear, and to step into a stronger, sharper, more intentional version of yourself. Most people don't realize that the biggest battles they face are not happening out in the world, they're happening inside their own mind. Long before life challenges them, their thoughts, impulses, and fears have already worn them down. You don't lose because the world is too hard. You lose because your inner world is untrained, loud, and pulling you in every direction. And in a life filled with pressure, distraction, and noise, that inner weakness becomes the real enemy. Marcus Aurelius understood this over 2,000 years ago when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Everything begins there. Not with circumstances, not with luck, not with motivation, with the mind. Inner strength isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. It's a practice, not a personality trait. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen it. Every time you calm your thoughts before reacting, you strengthen it. Every time you resist a distraction or quiet a fear, you strengthen it. But most people never train this part of themselves. They're pulled around by impulses they don't control, thoughts they don't question, and emotions they don't understand. They're living life with an untrained mind in a world designed to overwhelm them. Modern life makes this even harder. We live surrounded by constant noise, notifications, opinions, temptations, endless stimulation. Your attention is attacked from the moment you wake up. Your emotions are triggered by every headline, every comment, every memory. Your thoughts bounce between fear of the future and regrets of the past. Without inner mastery, you are at the mercy of all of this. You're pushed, pulled, controlled without even realizing it. That's why so many people feel lost, unfocused, anxious, or stuck. Not because they're broken, but because they've never been taught how to rule their inner world. The truth is simple. If you don't learn to master your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, and your environment, those things will master you. There is no neutrality. The mind is either trained or reactive, focused or scattered, strong or overwhelmed. And your life will always follow the state of your inner world. This guide is your path back to control, real control. Not control over the world, but control over yourself. The kind of self-control that creates confidence. The kind of discipline that builds respect. The kind of inner strength that cannot be shaken by circumstances. This is your blueprint for becoming someone you can rely on. Someone who can stand firm even when everything around them is uncertain. If you've ever felt like you're capable of more, if you've ever sensed that the real battle is happening within you, then you're in the right place. This is the beginning of mastering yourself, before the world has a chance to master you. Most people move through life convinced that their struggles come from the outside. They blame circumstances, timing, childhood, the government, their partner, their parents, their boss, their genetics, anything they can point to that exists beyond themselves. It feels easier that way. If the enemy is outside, then the responsibility is outside too. But the more honestly you look at life, the more painfully obvious it becomes. The biggest battles are never external. The real war is fought inside your own mind. You don't lose because the world is too difficult. You lose because the voice inside you convinces you to give up long before life even challenges you. The world knocks you down sometimes, yes, but your own inner resistance is what keeps you on the ground. The greatest obstacles aren't other people or bad luck. They are laziness, fear, anger, distraction, doubt, procrastination, and ego. These are the forces that quietly sabotage your life from the inside. Laziness whispers that you can do it tomorrow. Fear invents reasons to stay small. Anger clouds judgment and ruins relationships. Distraction steals the hours and days you never get back. Ego convinces you that you already know enough, that you're the victim, that change isn't necessary. These enemies aren't out there in the world. They live with you. They wake up with you. They follow you everywhere you go. And this is why ancient philosophers placed almost all their attention on the inner world. The Stoics, the Buddhists, the Taoists, the samurai, all of them understood that a person who cannot govern themselves will be governed by everything else. External enemies are easy to see. Internal enemies are invisible, patient, and far more dangerous. If you pay attention, you'll notice that your mind is constantly producing thoughts, impulses, cravings, frustrations, and fears, most of which have nothing to do with reality. This restless, uncontrolled inner chatter is what Buddhists called the monkey mind. It jumps from thought to thought, emotion to emotion, craving to craving, never still, never satisfied. It drags your attention away from what matters and throws you into whatever feels easiest or most stimulating in the moment. One minute you're full of ambition, the next you're scrolling mindlessly. One minute you're determined to change, the next you're overwhelmed. The monkey mind is always tempting you with the path of least resistance, and if you don't learn how to quiet it, it becomes the loudest voice in your life. There's a biological reason this happens. The brain isn't designed for greatness, it's designed for survival. Growth is optional, comfort is the default. The brain wants you to do whatever requires the least effort, the least energy, the least discomfort. That's why comfort is addictive. That's why discipline feels unnatural at first. That's why emotional impulses often overpower logic. Your mind favors short-term safety over long-term purpose. And if you don't understand this, you'll spend your entire life obeying instincts that are working against your goals. The truth is, that your brain isn't trying to help you thrive, it's trying to keep you calm and comfortable. But comfort is the silent enemy of progress. Comfort feels good now but costs you later. Growth feels uncomfortable now but rewards you later. Every day you wake up, you step into an internal battlefield. On one side is your intention, the part of you that wants to improve, grow, push forward, and become stronger. On the other side is impulse, the part of you that craves ease, pleasure, avoidance, and instant gratification. These two forces collide constantly. You want to work out, but your mind tells you to rest. You want to study, but your mind seeks entertainment. You want to stay calm, but anger provokes you. You want to be patient, but you react emotionally. You want a better life, but your habits push you toward the same old patterns. This is the war within, the fight between who you are and who you know you could become. And here is the core truth. Before you conquer anything in life, your career, your dreams, your relationships, your body, your finances, you must conquer yourself. If you lose the inner war, you will always lose the outer one. People who succeed aren't always the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who win the battle between impulse and intention more often than they lose. They build the discipline to act even when they don't feel like it. They learn to calm the noise inside their own minds. They choose long-term purpose over short-term pleasure. The real victory doesn't happen when the world applauds you. It happens in quiet, private moments when you choose the harder path simply because it's the right path. Mastering this inner war begins with honesty. You cannot defeat an enemy you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot change what you refuse to confront. Most people never do the deep work because it requires looking directly at the parts of themselves they'd rather avoid. But the moment you become aware of your inner patterns, everything starts to shift. Awareness is the gate. Awareness is the beginning of strength. Awareness is the first step toward mastery, and this is where the practice begins. Self-mastery starts with identifying the internal force that defeats you most often. You cannot fight everything at once. You must start with the main opponent. For the next 24 hours, pay attention to your patterns. Notice when you procrastinate. Notice when you get angry. Notice when you fall into distraction. Notice when fear whispers excuses. Notice when ego makes you defensive. Choose the one inner enemy that causes the most damage in your life right now, and write it down. Give it a name. Laziness, fear, anger, distraction, doubt. Once you name it, it becomes real. Once it becomes real, you can face it. Then identify the trigger. What situation activates this inner enemy the most? Does your fear appear when you think about starting something new? Does your laziness appear right when it's time to take action? Does distraction win the moment you feel slightly bored or uncomfortable? The trigger is the doorway. And once you know the doorway, you can control what happens after the moment of temptation. For the next 24 hours, simply observe this enemy every time it shows up. Don't fight it yet. Don't judge yourself. Just notice. You are training awareness, the first skill of mastery. When you see the enemy clearly, it loses half its power. When you recognize the pattern, you stop being controlled by it. You cannot change your life until you understand what you are truly fighting, and you are not fighting the world. You are fighting your own impulses. This is where transformation begins. Most people live their entire lives without ever realizing a simple, liberating truth. Your thoughts are not you. They arise automatically, without your permission, without your control, and often without any connection to reality. The mind produces thoughts the way the heart produces beats, constantly, endlessly, involuntarily. But while you cannot control what thoughts appear, you can control which thoughts you feed and which ones you ignore. This is the essence of self-mastery. Most suffering doesn't come from events themselves, but from the interpretations and stories the mind attaches to them. Epictetus said it perfectly. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them. The world is not as painful as the lens through which you view it, and until you learn to change that lens, you will remain a slave to whatever thought happens to appear next. There is a crucial difference between saying I am thinking and I am the thought. One creates space, the other collapses your identity into whatever passes through your mind. When you say I am thinking, you acknowledge that thoughts are temporary visitors. They show up, they pass through, they disappear. When you say I am the thought, you surrender your identity to every feeling, fear, insecurity, or impulse that arises. You become anger when you feel it. You become fear when it shows up. You become doubt the moment it whispers. This merging of self and thought is the root of emotional chaos. When people say they feel lost, overwhelmed, anxious, or stuck, what they're really experiencing is identification. They're over-attached to whatever the mind throws at them. This is where cognitive distancing becomes powerful. It's the practice of creating space between stimulus and response, between thought and action, between impulse and decision. Instead of reacting instantly, you learn to observe. Instead of believing everything your mind says, you begin to question. Instead of drowning in mental noise, you rise above it. Think of it like watching clouds drift across the sky. You don't chase them, argue with them, or try to force them away. You watch them pass. Your thoughts can be treated the same way. They lose power the moment you stop identifying with them. Musashi, the undefeated samurai, understood this deeply. His entire philosophy of combat and life centered around simplicity, removing anything that was of no use. This wasn't just about belongings or techniques, it was about mental clutter, thoughts that weaken you, thoughts that distract you, thoughts that add nothing to your purpose. Musashi believed that a person who cannot ignore useless thoughts becomes vulnerable and unfocused. The sword wavers, the mind hesitates, the body reacts slowly. In everyday life, useless thoughts drain your energy and attention. Worrying about what others think, replaying conversations, imagining worst-case scenarios, overanalyzing every small thing. These thoughts don't help you, they paralyze you. Overthinking is one of the most common modern illnesses. It's the mind trying to solve problems that don't exist. It's fear disguised as analysis. It's the brain trying to stay in control by imagining every possible outcome, usually the negative ones. But overthinking never leads to clarity. It only leads to exhaustion. It turns simple decisions into mental battles. It amplifies insecurities. It magnifies mistakes. It makes the mind loud and life heavy. The truth is, the mind overthinks because it's afraid to act. Overthinking becomes a shield you hide behind, but a shield made of fear cannot protect you. It only keeps you stuck. The moment you realize you are not your thoughts, everything begins to change. You don't have to fight them, fix them, or fear them. You just have to see them for what they are. Suggestions, not commands. Thoughts lose power when you observe them instead of obeying them. When you create space, you gain control. When you stop reacting, you start choosing. And choice is the foundation of freedom. This is the first real step toward inner mastery, not eliminating thoughts, but separating who you are from the noise your mind produces. This separation also helps you understand that your mind often lies to you. It exaggerates danger, it predicts failure, it obsesses over the past, it invents imaginary judgments, it clings to comfort and resists anything that feels challenging. When you blindly believe your thoughts, you let fear make decisions for you. When you observe your thoughts with distance, you decide which ones deserve attention. You become the master, not the servant. Inner strength is not a quiet mind. It's the ability to remain grounded even when the mind is loud. Cognitive distancing allows you to respond to life with clarity rather than panic. Between what happens and how you react, there is always a brief space, and that space is where strength lives. Most people react instantly out of emotion. They get angry and immediately lash out. They feel insecure and immediately hide. They feel fear and immediately quit. Cognitive distancing gives you the power to pause, to see clearly, and to choose your response consciously. This skill changes everything: your relationships, your discipline, your emotional balance, your decision-making, your confidence. Once you master this, you cannot be easily manipulated by circumstances, by emotions, or by other people. The more you practice distancing, the quieter the mind becomes. Not because fewer thoughts appear, but because fewer thoughts matter. You learn that many thoughts are simply noise, habitual reactions, old beliefs, fears that don't belong to you anymore. And once you stop feeding them with attention, they fade. Presence increases, clarity grows, focus sharpens. You begin to act from intention rather than impulse. And slowly, thought by thought, reaction by reaction, you reclaim your inner world. Mastering your thoughts isn't about positive thinking or forcing yourself to be calm. It's about understanding the nature of the mind and refusing to let it control your life. The mind is a tool, powerful, creative, intelligent, but dangerous when left untrained. A sword is useful in the hands of a skilled warrior, but deadly when it swings on its own. The goal is to hold the sword firmly, not let it swing you. Now it's time to practice. The 3-second pause. The next time a thought appears, especially a stressful, impulsive, or negative one, pause for just 3 seconds. This tiny break rewires your brain. Step 1. Pause. Don't react, don't move, don't follow the impulse, just stop. Step 2. Breathe once, slowly. The breath interrupts the automatic emotional response. It grounds you back into the body. Step 3. Ask yourself, is this useful? Is this thought something that helps you? Does it guide you toward your goals? Does it make you wiser, calmer, stronger? If the answer is no, let it go. Redirect your attention to what actually matters. This simple practice builds the muscle of awareness. It teaches your brain that you, not the thought, are in control. It gives you a moment to choose intention over impulse. Over days and weeks, the pause becomes automatic. The noise fades, your reactions slow down, you gain clarity, you gain power. Repeat it throughout the day. Every negative thought, every temptation, every moment of stress. Let the pause become your anchor in the storm. Let it create space between who you are and what your mind produces. In that space, you will find the beginning of real freedom and the foundation of mastering yourself. Emotions are powerful forces, but most people never learn how to work with them. They only learn how to be pushed around by them. An emotion is simply an impulse, a temporary wave of energy in the body, yet it becomes destructive when you allow it to dictate your behavior. Feeling anger is normal. Acting out of anger is where the damage begins. Feeling fear is natural. Letting fear decide your choices is where life becomes small. Feeling anxiety is human. Giving anxiety control over your future is where clarity disappears. Emotions are not the problem. The problem is what happens when an emotion becomes the master and you become the follower. And until you understand this, you will always feel like life is bigger than you, when in reality, it's only your reactions that control you. Ancient philosophers knew that emotions were the greatest threat to inner peace. Seneca wrote extensively about anger, calling it the most destructive emotion because it blinds judgment faster than any external enemy. To him, anger was a form of temporary madness, a fire that burns everything in its path, including the person who carries it. No rational decision has ever been made in a moment of intense anger, and yet so many people live in that state daily. Fear too distorts reality. It can turn small concerns into catastrophic predictions, making you avoid opportunities that could change your life. Anxiety clouds perception, making simple situations feel overwhelming and uncertain. These emotions do not reflect truth. They reflect the amplification of the mind in moments when clarity is lost. The samurais understood this better than anyone. They trained emotional neutrality not because they lacked feelings, but because they recognized that emotional reactions weaken judgment. In battle, reacting out of anger could get you killed. Reacting out of fear could freeze you. Reacting out of frustration could make you reckless. For a samurai, emotional neutrality was a survival skill. But outside of battle, the same principle applies. Emotional overreaction leads to poor decisions, broken relationships, unnecessary arguments, and missed opportunities. When emotions rule you, your life becomes chaotic. When you rule your emotions, your life becomes steady, even under pressure. One of the most important psychological truths is the 90-second rule. When an emotion rises, anger, fear, sadness, it triggers a biochemical reaction in the body that lasts about 90 seconds unless you feed it with thoughts. After those 90 seconds, the emotional energy naturally fades. But most people keep the emotion alive by feeding it stories. What if I fail? Why does this always happen to me? These stories reignite the emotional cycle over and over until the feeling becomes overwhelming. If you stop feeding the emotion with thoughts, you allow the body's natural emotional wave to rise and fall on its own. That's emotional mastery, not suppressing feelings but allowing them to pass without letting them control you. Emotional maturity is not the absence of emotion. It's the ability to observe without panicking. It's the skill of responding without reacting. It's the power to stay centered even when your inner world is shaking. When you're emotionally mature, you don't explode when you're angry, and you don't collapse when you're afraid. You feel the emotion fully, but you don't obey it. You don't let it dictate your words, your tone, your choices, or your identity. You become a witness to your emotional storms instead of letting them tear you apart. This is what allows you to keep your dignity during conflict, keep your clarity during uncertainty, and keep your direction during fear. Mastering your emotions also means understanding that feelings are not instructions, they're signals. Anger signals a boundary, fear signals uncertainty, anxiety signals imbalance, sadness signals loss. But none of these emotions tell you what to do. They only tell you what you need to pay attention to. When you mistake a signal for a command, you lose control. When you treat emotions as information, not orders, you gain power. A person who can stay calm under pressure becomes someone others rely on. A person who can remain steady during chaos becomes a leader. A person who doesn't react impulsively cannot be easily manipulated. Emotional control is not a luxury, it's a form of self-defense in a world filled with noise, conflict, and stress. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending you don't feel them. Suppression is just as dangerous as overreaction. When you suppress emotions, they don't disappear. They build up, grow stronger, and eventually leak out in destructive ways. Mastery isn't about hiding, it's about handling. It's about allowing the emotion to exist without letting it take over your voice or your behavior. The strongest people aren't the ones who feel nothing. They're the ones who feel deeply, but remain composed. They're the ones who refuse to be controlled by the temporary storms inside them. Imagine how different your life could be if you didn't act out of anger, if fear didn't immediately shut you down, if anxiety didn't dictate your choices, if frustration didn't sabotage your day. Emotional mastery isn't about making life easier, it's about making yourself stronger. When you stay calm, your mind works better. When you stay centered, your decisions improve. When you resist reacting impulsively, you become someone who others trust, and more importantly, someone who you trust. Inner trust is the core of confidence. It's the quiet knowing that you won't betray yourself under pressure. Every emotional outburst is a moment where you give up your power. Every moment of emotional clarity is a moment where you take it back. And that power grows every time you practice emotional stillness. Now let's turn this into a practical method. Name, don't negotiate. When a strong emotion rises, a burst of anger, a wave of fear, a spike of anxiety, or a rush of sadness, your job is not to fight it or suppress it, Your job is to name it. The act of naming creates distance. It switches your brain from emotional mode to observational mode. Instead of "I am angry," you say, "This is anger." Instead of "I am afraid," you say, "This is fear." This shift changes everything. You are no longer inside the emotion, you are observing it from the outside. Once you name the emotion, allow yourself to feel it for 90 seconds without adding thoughts. Don't justify it, don't explain it, don't replay the situation, don't imagine consequences, just feel the raw sensation in your body. This may feel uncomfortable at first, but it is the purest form of emotional courage. You're not running from the emotion, and you are not letting it run you. You are simply letting the emotional wave rise and fall naturally. During those 90 seconds, take no action, no messages, no replies, no decisions, no reactions. Your only responsibility is to breathe slowly, stay present, and let the body process the emotional energy. Most emotional regret comes from actions made during those first few moments. When you resist acting immediately, you prevent 90% of emotional damage before it happens. After 90 seconds, the emotion weakens, you gain clarity, and from clarity you choose your response, not your reaction. Practice this every day, with anger, with fear, with anxiety, with sadness, with frustration. The more you practice naming and observing, the less power these emotions have over you. You begin to realize that emotions come and go, but you remain. The storm passes and you are still standing, not shaken, not broken, not controlled. This is emotional mastery. This is inner strength. And this is how you become someone who rules the fire within instead of being consumed by it. Most people spend their lives waiting for motivation to strike, convinced that discipline is some mysterious force that certain people are born with. They imagine discipline as a feeling, something that should rise inside them like inspiration, something that should make hard tasks feel easy. But discipline has nothing to do with motivation. Discipline is consistency. It's showing up when you don't feel like it. It's choosing the action that strengthens you over the action that comforts you. Motivation is unpredictable, emotional, unstable. Discipline is steady, reliable, and indifferent to how you feel in the moment. If you rely on motivation, you'll only act on your best days. If you rely on discipline, you'll act even on your worst ones. And the person who acts on their worst days will always outrun the person who only acts on their best. Aristotle captured this truth in one of the most important lines ever written. We are what we repeatedly do. Not what we wish for, not what we talk about, not what we plan. Who you are is revealed by your daily actions. What you do consistently becomes your identity. A disciplined person is not someone who feels disciplined. They are someone who repeatedly behaves in a disciplined way. This is why small daily actions matter more than rare big efforts. Every single choice reinforces a version of yourself. Every morning you wake up early, you vote for the identity of a disciplined person. Every time you choose to exercise instead of procrastinate, you vote for a stronger self. Every time you honor your word, even when it's uncomfortable, you vote for a trustworthy identity. You don't become disciplined through inspiration, you become disciplined through repetition. This is the foundation of identity-based change. Most people try to change their lives by focusing on goals. I want to lose weight. I want to save money. I want to be more productive. But goals don't create identity. Identity creates behavior, and behavior achieves goals. When you shift your focus from what you want to do to who you want to become, everything gets easier. Instead of saying, I want to read more, you tell yourself, I am the kind of person who reads. Instead of saying, I want to be healthier, you say, I am the kind of person who takes care of my body. The actions that follow this identity become natural because they align with who you believe you are. This is where Kaizen, the Japanese philosophy of continuous improvement, becomes powerful. Kaizen teaches that massive change comes from tiny daily progress. Improvement doesn't happen through grand gestures. It happens through small, consistent adjustments. The human mind resists big changes because they feel overwhelming, but it accepts small ones easily. If you commit to improving just 1% each day, the compound effect over weeks, months, and years is extraordinary. Tiny habits don't feel significant, but they shape your identity quietly, steadily, and permanently. And once identity shifts, behavior follows without resistance. People often underestimate the power of simple habits because they crave dramatic transformation. But life is not changed by intensity, it's changed by consistency. A single workout doesn't make you fit, but working out consistently transforms your body. One day of reading doesn't make you wise, but reading daily transforms your mind. Showing discipline once doesn't make you strong, but showing discipline repeatedly becomes who you are. Simple habits done consistently are the bricks that build an unshakable identity, and an unshakable identity is what allows you to handle adversity, pressure, and uncertainty without falling apart. The greatest benefit of consistent action is not the result. It's the confidence you build from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you say, "I will do this," and then you actually do it, you strengthen a fundamental belief: I can trust myself. Most people struggle not because they're incapable, but because they've broken their self-trust repeatedly. They make promises they don't keep. They set goals they abandon. They make plans they don't follow. Over time, they start to see themselves as unreliable, weak, or inconsistent. But the moment you begin honoring even the smallest commitments, you rebuild trust with yourself. And when you trust yourself, you feel capable of anything. Inner confidence doesn't come from achievements. It comes from consistency. It comes from knowing that when the moment of pressure comes, you won't betray yourself. This is why small habits matter so much. They build a track record of personal integrity. They make you someone who follows through, someone who respects their own word, someone who can rely on themselves even when things get difficult. And when you know you can rely on yourself, life becomes far less intimidating. There is also something deeply grounding about having daily habits that anchor your life. Routines create stability in a world that constantly tries to pull you off course. They reduce decision fatigue, making it easier to stay focused. They create momentum, making hard tasks feel easier over time. And they free your mind from the chaos of indecision. When you build habits intentionally, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop overthinking, you stop relying on unstable emotions. Instead, you follow systems that carry you forward. Systems don't get tired, systems don't doubt, systems don't lose motivation. They simply work. Think of your habits as the invisible architecture of your life. You don't notice them when they're aligned, but you feel them deeply when they're not. Good habits pull you toward growth. Bad habits anchor you to weakness. When you take control of your daily actions, you take control of your future. The person who masters their habits masters their destiny. But developing strong habits doesn't mean you need to change everything at once. In fact, changing too much too quickly almost guarantees failure. The mind rebels against drastic change. The body struggles to adapt. Your identity feels threatened. This is why most people start strong and quit within days. The secret is not to aim for perfection. The secret is to build consistency so small and simple that failure becomes almost impossible. And that's where the next exercise comes in. Practical practice. The one non-negotiable habit. Choose one tiny habit that you will commit to every single day for the next 30 days. This habit must be so small that you cannot come up with a real excuse to avoid it. Something simple, something manageable, something that reinforces the identity you're trying to build. Reading one page, writing for 2 minutes, doing 10 push-ups, drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning, 1 minute of stretching, 1 minute of meditation, tidying your desk for 60 seconds. The point is not effort, it's consistency. This habit becomes the foundation upon which your identity shifts. For the next 30 days, this habit is your promise to yourself. No matter how tired you are, how busy you become, how emotional you feel, how chaotic life gets, this habit is non-negotiable. By doing something small every day, you are creating 3 powerful changes. 1. You build the identity of a disciplined person. Even small discipline is discipline. 2. You rebuild trust with yourself. You prove that you follow through. 3. You create momentum. Small actions lead to bigger actions naturally. Don't underestimate this. A tiny habit done daily will change you more than a massive habit done once in a while. The goal is not perfection. The goal is transformation through repetition. Let this one small habit become your anchor. Let it become the proof that you're capable of consistency. Let it be the first victory in the lifelong process of mastering your actions, and in mastering your actions, you master your identity. When your identity changes, your entire life changes with it. Most people believe discipline comes entirely from willpower, but the truth is far simpler. Your environment shapes your behavior far more than your intention ever will. You could have the strongest goals, the deepest desire for change, and the clearest vision for your future. But if your environment is filled with temptations, noise, and distractions, your discipline will collapse. Not because you're weak, but because the environment is stronger than your willpower. You can't win a battle you're forced to fight every minute of every day. At some point, the environment wears you down, not because you lack strength, but because your surroundings are designed to break your focus, drain your attention, and pull you off track. When you understand this, you realize that self-mastery isn't just about managing what happens inside you, it's also about managing what happens around you. Seneca wrote that life is long if you know how to use it, and part of using your life well is learning how to reduce unnecessary noise. He believed that simplicity was not a luxury, but a necessity for clarity. A cluttered environment creates a cluttered mind. Noise creates tension. Too many choices create decision fatigue. The more chaos around you, the more chaos you feel within you, and this chaos silently erodes your discipline. Think about how difficult it is to focus in a messy room, or how quickly you reach for your phone when it's within arm's reach, or how easy it is to get distracted when your workspace is filled with stimulation. Most people think they have an attention problem when they really have an environment problem. This is why the samurais and monks of the ancient world trained in environments that were carefully designed for stillness, discipline, and clarity. A samurai's dojo was minimalist, almost empty, because every object had meaning and purpose. There was nothing extra. Nothing that distracted, nothing that pulled attention away from the training. Monks lived in monasteries with simple rooms and quiet surroundings because they understood that controlling the mind begins with controlling the environment. These ancient warriors weren't avoiding the world. They were mastering themselves so they could re-enter the world with clarity and strength. They created conditions that made discipline easier, not harder. They knew that when the environment supports your goals, you don't have to fight your surroundings, you can use them. In modern life, the problem is the opposite. Instead of designing our environment intentionally, we exist in an environment that overwhelms us. Digital noise is everywhere, notifications pop up constantly, messages demand attention, apps are engineered to hijack your brain, entertainment is endless, advertisements chase you, your phone becomes a pocket-sized casino, always tempting you with instant gratification. None of this is accidental. It is designed to steal attention because attention is the most profitable resource in the world. The more distracted you are, the more predictable you become. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to influence. You can't expect to be disciplined in an environment that is designed to break discipline. In many ways, digital overstimulation is the greatest enemy of modern self-mastery. It breaks focus, weakens attention span, destroys patience, and makes discomfort feel unbearable. It rewires your brain to crave instant gratification, which makes long-term effort feel impossible. and yet people blame themselves for lacking discipline, not realizing they are living inside an environment engineered to defeat discipline. You can't outrun an environment that constantly attacks your mind. The only solution is to reshape it. This is where the principle of reducing friction becomes incredibly powerful. Fewer obstacles lead to fewer excuses. Fewer temptations lead to fewer setbacks. When you remove friction from your environment, you remove weakness from your behavior. For example, if your phone is next to your bed, you will reach for it. If junk food is in your house, you will eat it. If social media apps are on your home screen, you will open them. If your desk is messy, you will procrastinate. None of this is about character, it's about design. Your environment nudges you in small ways that become big patterns, and if you don't consciously design your environment, it will design you. The goal is not to eliminate every comfort in your life or to live like a monk. The goal is to create an environment where strength becomes the default behavior, not the rare exception. A space where focus feels natural, a routine where discipline doesn't feel like a battle, a home that supports clarity, calmness, and consistency, a digital world that works for you, not against you. When your environment supports your goals, every action becomes easier. You don't have to fight against temptation because it's not in front of you. You don't have to resist distraction because you've removed the triggers. You don't have to force discipline because your surroundings reinforce it. Imagine waking up in a clean room without your phone within reach. Imagine sitting at a desk with nothing on it except what you need to work. Imagine opening your laptop and seeing no distracting tabs, no notifications, and no digital chaos waiting for you. Imagine going through your day without constant beeps, buzzes, or reminders pulling you away from what matters. Suddenly, discipline doesn't feel like a struggle. It feels like a natural consequence of your environment. This is the power of intentional design. It's quiet, subtle, but transformative. It's easy to underestimate how much your environment shapes your identity, but think of it this way. If you live in a chaotic environment, chaos becomes familiar. If you live in a calm environment, calm becomes familiar. If you surround yourself with distractions, distraction becomes your normal state. If you surround yourself with simplicity, simplicity becomes who you are. Your environment trains you whether you want it to or not. And when you choose your environment carefully, you reclaim control of your mind, your habits, and your life. The truth is simple. You cannot build a strong inner world in a weak outer world. You cannot develop mental clarity in an environment of noise. You cannot build discipline in a space filled with tempting shortcuts. You cannot grow into your best self in a place designed for distraction. The external world and the internal world are connected. Strength is not just something you practice, it is something you design. And the more intentional you are with your environment, the less willpower you will need to live the life you want. Now it's time to put this into practice. Subtract 3 things. Within the next 24 hours, remove 3 things from your environment that weaken your discipline or drain your focus. These should be small but meaningful steps that instantly make your life quieter, cleaner, and more aligned with who you want to become. Choose from things like delete 1 app that consumes too much of your time. Remove junk food from your home so you don't have to battle temptation. Clean your desk or work area. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Put your phone in another room while you work. Unfollow accounts that distract your mind or pull you into comparison. Remove clutter from your bedroom so you wake up to clarity, not chaos. These aren't dramatic changes, but they create immediate impact. By removing just 3 sources of friction, you create space for better habits, clearer thinking, and deeper focus. You begin to experience how different life feels when the environment is working for you instead of against you. Each item you subtract is a vote for a stronger, cleaner, sharper version of yourself. Do this once and you'll feel relief. Do this weekly and you'll feel transformation. Do this continuously and you will build an environment where self-mastery becomes natural, not forced, not exhausting, but the normal way of living. Control your environment or your environment will control you. This is one of the most overlooked truths of inner strength, but once you understand it, you unlock a level of discipline that feels almost effortless. Mastering yourself is not a one-time achievement. It's a lifelong practice, one built in the small, quiet moments that no one else sees. The truth you've heard throughout this guide is simple but powerful. If you don't master yourself, the world will do it for you. Life, society, emotions, impulses, distractions, they all rush in to take control the moment you stop paying attention. But the opposite is also true. The moment you choose awareness over autopilot, the moment you choose intention over impulse, the moment you choose discipline over distraction, you begin shaping your life from the inside out. Self-mastery doesn't happen in a dramatic moment of transformation. It happens slowly, consistently, through little choices that build into something unshakable. It happens when you pause before reacting, when you calm your mind before it spirals, when you refuse to let emotions make decisions for you, when you follow through on your habits even on days you don't feel like it, when you design an environment that supports your strength instead of feeding your weaknesses. These choices might seem small, but they accumulate. They shape your identity. They create a life rooted in stability, clarity, and purpose. The 5 pillars you've learned, mastering your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, your environment, and the inner war that runs through them all, are not theories. They are tools, real tools you can apply today. Tools that anyone, no matter their past or their struggles, can use to build inner strength. Thoughts become clearer when you stop believing every idea your mind throws at you. Emotions become manageable when you learn to observe them instead of obey them. Actions become powerful when they are consistent and aligned with your identity. The environment becomes a source of support rather than sabotage when you design it intentionally. When all these pillars work together, you become someone life cannot easily shake. If you ever feel lost again, if you ever feel weak, distracted, or overwhelmed, return to this video. Let it recenter you. Let it remind you of who you're trying to become. Let it remind you that strength is built in everyday moments, not in rare flashes of motivation. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present, aware, and willing to take the next step. So hear this clearly. Save this video. Come back to it whenever you feel weak. And remember, a person who can rule themselves can never be ruled by anything else. You can do this. You can build inner strength. You can change the direction of your life. And it all begins with mastering yourself. Discipline isn't punishment, it's freedom. It's choosing long-term strength over short-term pleasure. Most people misunderstand discipline. They see it as restricting, tedious, or even painful, something forced upon them by external authority or circumstances. But true discipline, the kind we'll explore today, isn't about restriction. It's about mastering yourself so thoroughly that you're no longer enslaved by impulsive desires, fleeting emotions, or momentary temptations. Think about it. How many times have you regretted a decision made out of laziness, procrastination, or instant gratification? Every act of discipline you perform now is an investment that compounds over time, empowering you to build a life shaped by your own intentions rather than random impulses or external pressures. In our modern world, where distractions are constant and gratification is instant, the ability to maintain self-discipline is more critical than ever. We live in an age of relentless digital bombardment, notifications pulling us from tasks, apps engineered to addict us, and an endless cycle of consumption that can leave us exhausted and unfulfilled. Without discipline, we're easily swept away by these forces, drifting from one superficial pleasure to another without ever achieving deeper satisfaction. Discipline provides the anchor that keeps us rooted, focused, and clear-minded, guiding us toward meaningful achievements rather than temporary highs. It's the difference between spending hours scrolling aimlessly on your phone and investing the same time learning, training, or growing in a direction you truly value. Today we'll dive deeply into the philosophies and practical wisdom of two of history's greatest advocates of disciplined living, Marcus Aurelius and Miyamoto Musashi. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor of Rome, wasn't merely a powerful ruler but also a dedicated practitioner of rigorous self-reflection and self-control. His personal writings, known today as meditations, reveal a man constantly challenging himself to rise above impulses and emotions, focusing instead on reason, duty, and inner strength. His philosophy teaches that external circumstances don't control us unless we allow them to. He believed that by mastering our reactions and embracing discipline, we attain freedom, the ultimate power over our lives. Miyamoto Musashi, on the other hand, was a legendary samurai from 17th century Japan whose discipline became legendary through his deeds. A skilled swordsman undefeated in over 60 duels, Musashi didn't rely solely on physical prowess, but on extraordinary mental discipline. His celebrated work, The Book of Five Rings, outlines the mindset of a warrior who sees every moment as an opportunity to train, improve, and perfect himself. Musashi emphasizes that discipline isn't merely about routine or rigidity, but about constantly refining your mind, skills, and spirit until your actions become effortless. It's a relentless pursuit of mastery, where discipline becomes a path rather than just a practice. Both Aurelius and Musashi lived in vastly different worlds, yet their message about self-discipline aligns powerfully. They teach us that discipline isn't about restricting our freedom, rather it is the gateway to real freedom, clarity, and personal excellence. By embracing their wisdom, you'll see how discipline can radically change your perspective and your daily life. We'll explore these timeless secrets and provide practical guidance to help you apply ruthless self-discipline in your own modern context. Whether you seek greater success, deeper fulfillment, or simply more control over your daily habits and decisions, understanding the disciplined mindset of these legendary figures will guide you toward becoming the strongest and freest version of yourself. For Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics, discipline was never about external control. It was about internal mastery. It was about becoming so anchored in your values and reason that nothing outside of you could shake your peace. You have power over your mind, not outside events, Marcus wrote. Realize this, and you will find strength. That single line contains the entire foundation of Stoic thought. The world will always be unpredictable. People will disappoint you. Plans will collapse. Pain, loss, failure, they're all unavoidable. But the one thing you will always own, completely and irrevocably, is your mind. Your choices, your thoughts, your reactions. And it's within this inner domain that true discipline begins. To the Stoics, freedom didn't mean doing whatever you want. It meant being free from the tyranny of emotion, desire, and fear. In other words, discipline isn't chains. It's the key that unlocks mental clarity and emotional independence. And that starts with a shift in perspective. You don't control what happens to you, but you absolutely control how you interpret and respond to it. When something bad happens, let's say you lose a job, miss an opportunity, or get betrayed by someone you trust, the undisciplined mind spirals. It blames, it complains, it wallows. The disciplined mind, on the other hand, pauses. It asks, what can I do with this? How can I grow from this? That mental pivot is the essence of Stoicism and the gateway to real power. Discipline, then, becomes a kind of inner compass. It points you toward what matters, regardless of what the world throws your way. When you're disciplined, you're no longer at the mercy of your environment. You're no longer reactive. You begin to act instead of being acted upon. This is why Marcus Aurelius journaled every morning and night. He wasn't writing for show. He was training his mind to stay in control, to face the chaos of being an emperor and a man with a kind of stillness most people never reach. He was reminding himself daily, this is what I can control. This is what I must let go of. In your own life, you may not rule an empire, but the same principle applies. Maybe you feel overwhelmed by things outside of your control, your job, your finances, your relationships, or even global events. The Stoic response is not to surrender to helplessness, but to double down on the one thing you do control: yourself, your habits, your focus, your attitude. That's where discipline lives. Take something as simple as a morning routine. Waking up early, avoiding your phone first thing, drinking water, exercising, or journaling. These might seem like small actions, but they are radical acts of self-discipline in a world that rewards passivity. When you consistently wake up on your terms, not because you have to, but because you choose to, you're reclaiming control. That's freedom. You're not a slave to the snooze button or to external obligations. You're asserting your will. The same goes for fitness. Every time you move your body when you don't feel like it, you're proving that your higher self, not your cravings or laziness, is in charge. Even with money, discipline transforms everything. Financial discipline isn't about deprivation, it's about sovereignty. When you budget, when you save, when you live below your means, you're creating space between you and desperation. You're freeing yourself from debt, from anxiety, from the constant chase. That's Stoic. That's power, and it all starts with simple daily actions that align with your values instead of your moods. The truth is, life without discipline feels free on the surface, but underneath, it's chaos. You eat whatever you want, spend impulsively, scroll endlessly, and it feels good for a moment, but later you feel lost, scattered, anxious. Discipline flips that. It asks you to delay gratification in the short term, but in exchange it gives you peace, confidence, and control over your future. It's delayed pleasure for lasting fulfillment. The best part is, you don't need to do everything at once. Stoicism teaches that control is built moment by moment, decision by decision. Start with one area of your life. Ask yourself, where am I letting external circumstances dictate my inner state? Where am I giving away my power? Maybe it's how you react when plans change. Maybe it's how you respond to criticism. Maybe it's your morning, your money, or your screen time. Pick one and apply discipline ruthlessly, not to punish yourself, but to liberate yourself. Because the truth is, you are always training your mind, whether you realize it or not. You're either training it to obey your values or to obey your impulses. You're either moving toward freedom or toward dependency. And in a world full of noise, distraction, and indulgence, self-discipline isn't just a virtue, it's a rebellion. A quiet rebellion against everything that wants to pull you away from your highest self. So let Marcus's words echo in your mind the next time you're tempted to quit, complain, or escape. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Let that be your compass. Let that be your standard. And remember, every disciplined choice you make is a brick in the foundation of a life you fully control. A life guided not by chaos but by clarity. Not by chance but by character. That is Stoic discipline. That is real freedom. If you wish to control others, you must first control yourself. These words from Miyamoto Musashi aren't just the advice of a warrior. They are a universal principle for anyone who wants to live with strength, clarity, and purpose. Because before you can lead others, succeed in your craft, or rise to any challenge in life, you have to first do battle with your own inner chaos. Musashi understood that the greatest war is not with the world, but with the self, the part of you that wants to quit, that wants comfort, that resists effort, that fears failure. And he believed that the only way to overcome that internal resistance was through relentless, consistent, disciplined training. Master yourself or be mastered. There is no middle ground. Miyamoto Musashi wasn't a philosopher in the traditional sense. He didn't write long meditations like Marcus Aurelius, but he lived his philosophy, and the Book of Five Rings, his manual on strategy and life, is a product of pure lived discipline. Musashi was born in 1584 in feudal Japan and became a swordsman at an incredibly young age. By 13, he had already fought and won his first duel. By the end of his life, he was undefeated in over 60 duels, often against the most skilled and deadly warriors of his time. But his victories weren't about brute strength or flashy techniques. They were the result of thousands of hours of disciplined practice, observation, and inner reflection. He trained alone, lived simply, and focused obsessively on mastering not just the sword, but himself. Musashi's lifestyle was extreme by modern standards. He often lived without shelter, slept little, and ate simply. He avoided luxury and comfort because he believed they made the mind soft. His idea was clear. If you train yourself to be comfortable in discomfort, to stay calm in chaos, to act decisively under pressure, then no enemy, no obstacle, no external force can control you, and that's what made him unstoppable. He didn't rely on the external world to give him strength. His strength came from within. Now, most of us aren't going to become wandering swordsmen, but the core of Musashi's philosophy applies to every single one of us. We all face battles every day, battles with procrastination, with fear, with distraction, with self-doubt. Musashi's life shows us that the only way to win these battles is through consistency, through small, repeated acts of discipline. It's not about dramatic transformations or once-in-a-while effort. It's about showing up every single day and doing the work, even when it's boring, even when no one is watching. So, how do you apply Musashi's mindset in modern life? Start with your rituals, your daily habits. Musashi's life was built on training, and not just physical training. He also practiced calligraphy, painting, and poetry. To him, discipline wasn't just about fighting, it was about sharpening the mind, refining the spirit, and focusing attention. You can take that same mindset into your own career, health, or creative work. If you're trying to build a business, learn a skill, or improve your health, it's not about motivation or talent. It's about carving out time each day to train. Let's say you're working on your career. Apply Musashi's method. Set a time every day when you work deeply. No distractions, no multitasking. Turn it into a sacred ritual. You're not just answering emails or checking tasks, you're training. Or if it's your health, make your workouts non-negotiable. Rain or shine, tired or energized, you show up, even if it's 20 minutes, even if it's not perfect. That's how you train your mind to obey, not your feelings, but your principles. And if it's your creativity, whether you're writing, designing, composing, then Musashi's model is even more important. Create daily, not because you feel inspired, but because it's time to create. Creativity is not magic, it's discipline. It's the same muscle as swordsmanship, focus, repetition, refinement. The more you do it, the sharper your blade becomes. Musashi also believed in detachment, not in a cold, emotionless way, but in a strategic way. He knew that being too attached to comfort, success, praise, or even technique could make you rigid, and rigidity is death in combat and in life. So ask yourself, what are you clinging to that weakens you? Maybe it's your phone, your routines, your comforts, or even your self-image. Part of mastering yourself is learning what to let go of, what to walk away from, what to discipline out of your life. Musashi once said, "Do nothing which is of no use." That's a brutal standard, but it's also incredibly liberating. Imagine stripping your life down to only the useful, only the essential. What would that look like for you? Here's a practical way to start living like Musashi. Choose one habit, just one, something small but meaningful. Maybe it's waking up at the same time every day. Maybe it's writing for 30 minutes. Maybe it's journaling or meditating. Whatever it is, commit to it for the next 30 days, not as a challenge, not as an experiment, but as a test of your self-mastery. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't negotiate with yourself. Just do it every single day and watch what happens. Because the real power of Musashi's method is that it builds something invisible. Confidence. Not the fake, loud kind, but the quiet, immovable kind that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. That you'll show up, rain or shine. That you can do hard things. That you are not ruled by mood or circumstance. That you are the master of your own life. Master yourself or be mastered. That's the choice Musashi offers us. It's simple, but not easy. It requires discomfort. It requires sacrifice. But it also offers something priceless in return: strength, clarity, and freedom. Not someday, but now, in every decision you make. So what's your next move? What's the one habit you'll master starting today? Because this isn't just a philosophy for warriors. It's a philosophy for anyone who's tired of being controlled by distractions, by fear, by impulses, and is ready to reclaim control through discipline. One choice at a time, one day at a time, one habit at a time. We've all been there, fired up after watching an inspiring video or reading a quote that hits just right. You feel like you can take on the world. You make big plans, start a new diet, begin a workout routine, commit to waking up early, but then the motivation fades. Maybe the next day, maybe within the hour, and suddenly the energy is gone. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow or next week. And slowly, without even noticing, you slip back into your old patterns. This is why relying on motivation is a losing game. It's unreliable, it's emotional, and it disappears the moment life gets inconvenient. Motivation is a mood, discipline is a decision, and decisions, real daily committed decisions, are what build a life. The philosopher Epictetus said, "Progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily." He didn't say sometimes. He didn't say when you feel like it. He said daily. Because real transformation happens when you show up no matter what. When you stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start saying, "This is just what I do." That's the power of discipline. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It just acts. Modern psychology backs this up. Motivation, according to neuroscientists, is connected to the brain's dopamine system. It spikes when you anticipate a reward, but it drops quickly when that reward feels far away, uncertain, or difficult. That's why it's so easy to get excited about starting something new, but so hard to stay consistent when the results take time. Your brain gets bored, it wants instant payoff. But discipline is what steps in when the dopamine dips. Discipline is what keeps you going when your brain starts whining, "This is hard," or "This is boring," or "Let's just skip today." And here's the truth. The people who succeed long-term, whether in fitness, creativity, business, or personal growth, aren't the most motivated. They're the most consistent. They've built systems that work even when their emotions don't. They've created habits so embedded in their identity that skipping them feels unnatural. They don't rely on the wave of inspiration. They rely on the structure they've built beneath it. Let's talk about that structure, because it's not magic. It's practical, repeatable, and completely within your reach. The first technique is habit stacking. This is simple but incredibly effective. The idea is to attach a new habit to something you already do regularly. For example, if you always make coffee in the morning, you can stack journaling or stretching onto that habit. Instead of trying to build something entirely from scratch, you piggyback on an existing behavior. That makes the new habit feel more automatic, less like a chore. You're not reinventing your entire life. You're just anchoring good behavior to routines that already exist. The second tool is accountability. Discipline thrives in environments where someone or something is watching. That doesn't mean you need a coach yelling at you 24/7, but you do need a mechanism that keeps you honest. This could be a friend who checks in on your progress, a public commitment, or even a habit tracking app that shows your streak. When your progress is visible and tracked, it's harder to make excuses. You turn discipline into a game of integrity. You said you would do it, so do it. Another critical piece is environment design. We often underestimate how much our surroundings shape our behavior. If your phone is always within reach, if your workspace is cluttered, if junk food is the first thing you see when you open the fridge, you're making discipline harder than it needs to be. Change your environment and your behavior will follow. Put your phone in another room when you work. Lay your workout clothes out the night before. Make your default choices easier and smarter, so you don't have to rely on willpower all day long. Willpower is limited, environment is constant. Here's the beauty of discipline. It doesn't require you to feel good. It doesn't care if you're tired, bored, or uninspired. It just asks for action. It builds momentum, and that momentum builds identity. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you're voting for the person you want to become. And those votes add up, not in a week, not even in a month. But over time, they create an unshakable foundation. That's why it's so dangerous to wait for motivation. Motivation is external. Discipline is internal. Motivation says, I'll act when I feel ready. Discipline says, I'll act, and the feeling will follow. And most of the time it does. The funny thing is, once you start acting, the motivation you were waiting for often shows up after you take the first step. But it's discipline that gets you moving. So how do you begin building discipline right now? Start by designing a simple, structured routine, one that aligns with your goals and your values. This doesn't need to be complex or rigid. It just needs to be clear and repeatable. Ask yourself, what time will I wake up? When will I do focus work? What will I avoid during those hours? When will I train or create or read? Write it down. Make it visible. Treat it like a contract. And then build an accountability system around it. This could be as simple as a daily check mark on your calendar, a text to a friend, or a journal where you reflect every evening on what you did or didn't do. The point isn't perfection. The point is awareness. If you miss a day, don't collapse into guilt or excuses. Just reset. Pick it back up. Discipline isn't about never failing. It's about always returning. Here's your challenge. Within the next 24 hours, create a daily structure that supports one of your goals. Maybe it's fitness, maybe it's your creative work, maybe it's learning a new skill or improving your mindset. Whatever it is, write down when, where, and how you'll engage with that goal every day. Make it specific, make it visible, and then stick to it. For 1 week, then 2, then a month. Don't wait to feel ready. Just begin. Because in the end, motivation is a spark, but discipline, that's the firewood. That's what keeps the flame alive long after the excitement fades. The more you lean on discipline, the more you realize you don't need to be inspired, you just need to keep going. That's where the real power is, not in the hype, but in the habit, not in the idea, but in the execution. Epictetus was right. Progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily. That's the blueprint, that's the path. Not someday, not when it feels good, but today, especially today. You can't control the world, but you can control how you see it. And that's where mental discipline begins. The Stoics didn't just train their bodies or their habits, they trained their minds. Every day they prepared themselves not just for action, but for adversity. They understood that most of our suffering doesn't come from what actually happens, but from how we interpret it. As Seneca famously said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That single sentence contains a lifetime's worth of wisdom. Because how many times have you replayed a situation in your head, imagined the worst, panicked over something that never actually happened? The Stoics would say, this is unnecessary suffering, it's optional, and the way to fight it is with a disciplined mind. So how do we develop that kind of mental strength? The ability to stay calm when things go wrong, focused when life gets messy, and resilient when we're tested? The answer lies in a few core Stoic practices. They're simple but powerful. The kind of tools you can use every single day to become mentally tougher, clearer, and more in control of your own emotions. Let's break them down. First, let's talk about negative visualization. This is one of the most misunderstood but essential Stoic techniques. The idea is to imagine regularly that the things and people you value might one day be gone. Not to make yourself sad, but to make yourself grateful. Instead of taking life for granted, you become more aware of its fragility, and that awareness helps you value it more deeply. For example, you might visualize losing your job, your health, or even someone you love. Not in a morbid or obsessive way, but briefly, intentionally. You're not trying to panic yourself, you're training your mind to be ready to appreciate what you have while it lasts and to reduce the shock if and when hardship comes. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this constantly. He reminded himself every morning that the people he'd meet would likely be rude, selfish, or irrational. He wasn't being cynical, he was being realistic. And by mentally preparing for that reality, he trained himself to respond with patience instead of anger. That's negative visualization at work. You expect discomfort, so you're never thrown off by it. You imagine loss, so gratitude grows in its place. Another vital Stoic practice is journaling, not as a diary, but as a form of self-examination. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations is essentially a journal. He wasn't writing to impress anyone, he was writing to strengthen himself, to remind himself of what mattered, to clarify his thoughts, to confront his own weaknesses, and you can do the same. Spend just 10 minutes at the beginning or end of your day asking yourself, what did I do well today? Where did I lose control? What could I do better tomorrow? This kind of reflection is discipline. It's not glamorous, but it works. Over time, it rewires your thinking. You begin to catch your reactive tendencies. You start to see patterns. And most importantly, you begin to separate what's within your control from what isn't, which is the core of Stoic resilience. A third technique is what the Stoics called voluntary discomfort. This means intentionally stepping outside your comfort zone, not because you have to, but because you choose to. Seneca used to practice sleeping on the floor, eating plain food, or wearing rough clothes. not out of self-punishment, but to remind himself, if I had to live like this, I could. In today's world, this might mean taking cold showers, fasting occasionally, walking instead of driving, or leaving your phone at home for a day. These acts sound small, but they build incredible strength. They train you to be less dependent on luxury, more comfortable with challenge, and more appreciative of what you usually take for granted. Let's look at a quick story to bring this to life. Imagine two people face the same setback, losing a job. One of them spirals into panic. They weren't prepared. Their identity was tied to the job. They have no fallback plan, no emotional buffer. The second person, however, has practiced Stoic mental discipline. They've visualized this possibility before. They've trained themselves to be adaptable. Their journal is filled with reminders that external status doesn't define their worth. As a result, they remain calm. They respond instead of react. They focus on the next move rather than the loss. Same situation, very different outcome. That's the power of a disciplined mind. Another example, imagine someone insults you publicly. The reactive mind gets angry, takes it personally, lashes out or retreats. But the Stoic mind pauses, reflects, asks, is what they said true? If it is, I should thank them for pointing it out. If it's false, why should it bother me? This is real power. Not the power to control others, but the power to control yourself. To hold your dignity even when others try to pull you down. And that's the kind of strength that no one can take from you. So how do you start integrating these Stoic techniques into your life? Here's a step-by-step approach you can begin today. Start your day with negative visualization. Spend just 2-3 minutes imagining how the day might go wrong. Missed buses, rude people, difficult clients. Then tell yourself, if this happens, I will respond with calm and reason. This prepares your mind and reduces emotional shock. End your day with a journal reflection. Ask yourself, what did I do well today? Where did I let emotions override reason? What will I do better tomorrow? Keep it simple, but honest. This daily habit compounds into greater clarity and self-control. Schedule one act of voluntary discomfort per week. Choose something small, skip a meal, take a cold shower, wake up earlier, or fast from your phone. Not to suffer, but to train. To remind yourself that you are tougher than your comforts. Watch your reactions in real time. Throughout the day, catch yourself in moments of anger, frustration, or anxiety. Pause and ask, what part of this is within my control? Just that single question can shift your perspective. Here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, commit to trying one of these techniques. Start journaling nightly, or begin each day with a 2-minute visualization, or pick a small discomfort and lean into it. Don't aim for perfection. Just aim for awareness. Watch how your mind begins to shift, how you become less reactive, more grounded, more in control. Because at the end of the day, your mind is your most powerful tool, but it can also be your greatest enemy if left undisciplined. The Stoics knew this. That's why they trained it daily, like a muscle. And if you're serious about self-development, about resilience, about living on your own terms, then this is where it all starts. Seneca's quote echoes once again. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. So why not train your imagination? Shape it, discipline it, turn it from a source of fear into a source of strength. That's what the Stoics did. That's what you can do, starting now. If there is one truth that Stoics and samurai shared without hesitation, it's this. Adversity is not the enemy, it's the training ground. It's the proving arena for your character. In fact, it's through struggle that you become who you are meant to be. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly: the obstacle is the way. Not something to avoid, not something to curse, but something to embrace, because it's in hardship that you learn patience. It's in failure that you learn resilience. It's when everything goes wrong that you discover the kind of person you really are. This wasn't just abstract philosophy from Marcus. He lived it. As Roman emperor during one of the most difficult periods in Rome's history, he was under relentless pressure. During his reign, the empire faced multiple plagues, constant warfare on its borders, famine, natural disasters, and betrayal from within. He lost children, close friends, and battled sickness himself. And yet, through all of it, he kept writing. He kept thinking. He kept leading. Not perfectly, but with steady, quiet, disciplined strength. He didn't ask for an easy life. He simply asked for the inner power to handle whatever life gave him. The same is true for Miyamoto Musashi. He didn't become the greatest swordsman in Japan because life was gentle with him. He became great because he put himself in real situations of adversity. By the end of his life, he had fought over 60 duels, each one a real fight, not practice, not theory. And he didn't win because he was lucky. He won because he was prepared. Relentlessly, obsessively, and deliberately prepared. He trained not just in swordsmanship, but in calmness under pressure. He knew that most people panic when things go wrong. Their minds get cloudy, their emotions take over. Musashi trained himself to do the opposite, to slow down when others sped up, to see clearly when others froze in fear. One of Musashi's most famous duels was against Sasaki Kojiro, a renowned swordsman with a reputation for speed and precision. They met on a small island for the duel, but Musashi arrived late, intentionally. He came with an oar he had carved into a wooden sword during the boat ride. Kojiro, angered and thrown off balance by the delay, charged with fury. Musashi stayed calm, analyzed his opponent's emotion, and struck decisively. One blow, victory. It wasn't brute strength, it wasn't clever trickery, it was mental discipline in action. He used his opponent's emotional reaction against him. That was Musashi's genius. His discipline allowed him to stay cool, strategic, and unshaken, even in a fight to the death. What both Marcus and Musashi understood is that adversity reveals your training. When things are going well, it's easy to talk about mindset, philosophy, and discipline. But when your plans collapse, when pressure hits, when life throws a punch you didn't expect, that's when it counts. That's when all the inner work either shows up or disappears. So here's the shift we all need to make. Stop wishing life was easier. Start training to be stronger. The Stoics didn't pray for perfect circumstances. They trained for any circumstances. Musashi didn't hope his enemies would be weak. He trained so that even against the best, he could remain calm and sharp. That's the mindset we all need today. Whether you're trying to build a business, recover from failure, deal with heartbreak, or face health issues, you don't control the storm. You do control how well you're prepared for it. And preparation doesn't have to be dramatic. It starts with your mindset. When something uncomfortable shows up, a delay, a rejection, a betrayal, don't complain. Ask, what is this here to teach me? That question changes everything. Suddenly, the obstacle isn't an interruption, it's an invitation. A chance to become more patient, more disciplined, more focused. If someone criticizes you unfairly, instead of reacting emotionally, ask, can I learn to stay composed? Can I use this to sharpen my emotional control? That's Stoic training. If a project fails, don't spiral. Ask, where did I go wrong? How can I come back smarter and stronger? You don't have to fight duels or lead an empire to apply this. Life hands you training opportunities every day. An unexpected bill? That's a chance to practice financial discipline. A long line at the store? That's patience training. Someone cuts you off in traffic? Emotional control practice. No one needs to see you react calmly, but you will know, and every time you do it, your mind gets stronger, just like a muscle. And over time, that strength becomes natural. You don't need to fake calm, you become calm. You don't need to force resilience, you are resilient. But you have to be intentional. You can't wait until the crisis hits to start thinking like this. That's like trying to learn swordsmanship in the middle of a battle. You need to build the mindset now, during ordinary moments, so when extraordinary challenges come, you're ready. Here's a simple exercise to start with. Right now, list 3 personal obstacles you're facing. Maybe they're external, like debt, career setbacks, or relationship issues, or maybe they're internal, like self-doubt, laziness, or anxiety. Write them down, and for each one, answer this. How can I use this challenge to develop greater discipline? What can this difficulty teach me about persistence, patience, or problem solving? Then, create a disciplined action plan for each one. Not a dramatic plan, just a daily habit. Something small, repeatable, and clear. If your obstacle is poor health, your action might be 30 minutes of walking every morning. If your obstacle is anxiety, your action might be 10 minutes of journaling or breath work. If it's procrastination, maybe it's 90 minutes of focused work before checking your phone. Whatever it is, make it consistent. Don't wait for it to feel easy, just do it every day. That's how you build discipline through adversity. Because adversity isn't a curse, it's a crucible. It burns away weakness and reveals what's real. That's why Marcus said, the obstacle is the way. Not because he liked suffering, but because he understood that without obstacles, there is no growth. And Musashi? He didn't fear stronger opponents, he welcomed them. Because with each challenge, he became sharper, faster, calmer. Life was his dojo. Every moment was practice. And the same is true for you. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Use this moment. Use your frustration, your setbacks, your challenges. Train with them. Respond to them with purpose. Because every time you face something hard with discipline, you move closer to mastery, closer to freedom. That's the path. That's the way. The obstacle is the way. And if you truly want to grow, don't run from the hard things. Walk straight into them with your head clear, your breath steady, and your discipline sharpened like a blade. One of the most dangerous forces we face in the modern world isn't violence, chaos, or disaster, it's distraction. Quiet, subtle, invisible, yet powerful enough to derail entire lives. You set a goal, you start a project, you make a promise to yourself. But then, a notification buzzes. You check your phone, you scroll for a few minutes, then a few more. An hour slips away, the energy is gone, the motivation is lost, and slowly, your life becomes filled not with meaningful progress, but with mental clutter. This is self-sabotage in its most common form, not dramatic destruction, but the slow, passive erosion of your focus. Miyamoto Musashi warned us about this centuries ago. He wrote, "Do not indulge the body, it becomes demanding. Do not indulge the mind, it becomes unruly." He wasn't talking about torture or punishment. He was talking about discipline, the ability to deny yourself short-term pleasure in order to protect long-term power. Because if you give your body everything it wants, comfort, food, entertainment, it starts expecting it. It starts needing it. And the same goes for your mind. If you let it jump from one distraction to the next, if you feed it constant stimulation, it stops being able to focus. It becomes chaotic, restless, weak. And once your mind becomes weak, discipline becomes almost impossible. Let's be honest, most of us don't fail because of lack of knowledge. We know what to do. We fail because we're constantly pulled away from doing it. By a screen, by a craving, by a just 5 more minutes. Distractions don't feel dangerous in the moment, but over time they become chains. They trap you in a cycle of wasted time and half-finished goals. You promise yourself you'll focus tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes because you're not dealing with the real enemy, the absence of focus. Discipline is how you fight back, but it's not about brute force or beating yourself up. It's about being intentional. Both Stoics and samurai knew that the mind could only be sharpened through simplicity and repetition. The Stoics believed in mastering the mind through reflection, awareness, and control over attention. The samurai trained in silence, in solitude, in removing everything that wasn't useful. They didn't waste energy on excess. They cut away the unnecessary to keep their edge. We need that same mindset today. In a world engineered to hijack your attention, being focused is not just helpful, it's heroic. Think about how much more powerful you'd be if you could reclaim even half the time you waste on mindless scrolling or impulsive distraction. That time adds up, and it's not just the minutes, it's the mental residue. Every time you switch tasks, your focus weakens. Every time you give in to distraction, your discipline erodes. But when you protect your attention, when you learn to resist the urge to escape discomfort, you start building real strength. Here's the good news. Your brain is trainable. You can rewire your focus, but you have to give it the right environment. One of the most effective strategies is deep work, a concept popularized by Cal Newport, but rooted deeply in Stoic and samurai principles. Deep work is about setting aside blocks of time where you work without any distractions. No phone, no internet tabs, just one task, full presence. This is how masterpieces are made, not in multitasking chaos, but in disciplined, deliberate attention. If you want to try this, start small. Block out just 90 minutes a day. Choose your most important task. Writing, building, studying, thinking. Turn off notifications. Put your phone in another room. Use noise-canceling headphones if you need to. And then, just do the work. Don't wait to feel like it. Don't give in to discomfort. Just sit, breathe, and focus. It will be hard at first. Your brain will try to escape. But if you stick with it, something incredible happens. You enter flow. You tap into clarity. You build something real. And over time, this becomes your new normal. Another method is digital minimalism. This doesn't mean deleting every app or becoming a monk. It means designing your digital life with intention. Audit your phone. Ask yourself, what apps actually serve me? Which ones just distract me? Remove the ones you don't need. Set limits on social media. Disable non-essential notifications. Create rules for your screen time. For example, no phone during the first hour of the day, or no checking email after 8 p.m. These little boundaries create massive clarity. They return your attention to you instead of giving it away to algorithms. You can also use environmental design to support your discipline. The Stoics understood that we become what we practice. So instead of constantly battling temptation, eliminate it. If you want to read more, put books where you can see them. If you want to stop snacking, don't buy the junk food. If you want to meditate, create a space that invites calm. Structure your surroundings so that the easiest choice is the right one. That's not weakness, that's smart discipline. Temptations will never fully disappear, but you can make them easier to resist. One strategy is the 10-minute rule. When you feel the urge to check your phone, scroll, or quit a task, wait 10 minutes. Don't judge yourself. Just sit with the discomfort. Most of the time, the urge fades. You've trained your brain not to obey every impulse, and that's the win. Not perfection, but pause, awareness, control. Another powerful tool is creating a ritual of intentionality before doing anything important. Before you start a task, pause for 30 seconds. Breathe, set your intention. Ask, what am I about to do? Why does it matter? This small moment of clarity can prevent hours of unconscious distraction. The Stoics did this. They prepared their minds before battle, before conversation, before action. They knew, a disciplined mind begins with a deliberate thought. So here's your challenge. Try a digital detox day. One full day, no social media, no unnecessary screen time. Use your phone only for essential communication. Spend the rest of the day reading, thinking, writing, moving your body, or doing something that strengthens your mind. Notice how different you feel, how much more space your mind has, how much calmer your thoughts become. Even one day can reset your brain. And once you've done that, experiment with focused time blocks during your week. Carve out daily windows, 90 minutes, 2 hours, even just 45 minutes, where you give your full attention to something meaningful. Protect that time like a samurai protects his sword, because it is your sword. Your attention is your most powerful tool. Don't waste it on noise. Use it to build, to grow, to deepen your life. Remember what Musashi said, "Do not indulge the mind, it becomes unruly." That doesn't mean never rest, it means rest with intention, focus with intention, live with intention, because in a world full of distractions, the person who can stay focused even for an hour is unstoppable. Self-sabotage isn't just about failure, it's about all the things we could have done but didn't, all the time we lost to distractions, all the energy we gave away to things that didn't matter. But the good news is, you can change that. One day, one decision, one focus block at a time. So start today. Try the detox. Try the focus block. Start training your mind like a warrior. Because freedom doesn't come from giving in to every impulse. It comes from mastering them. That's the discipline. That's the way. Discipline isn't just a tactic. It's not something you pull out only when things get tough. Real discipline, the kind that transforms your life, is a way of being. It's something you carry with you into everything. How you wake up, how you eat, how you work, how you speak, how you rest. It's not about being rigid or joyless. It's about living with intention, clarity, and purpose every single day. It's about asking yourself, what really matters? And then having the courage to strip everything else away. As Antoine de Saint-Exupéry put it, perfection is achieved, not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. That's the heart of minimalist discipline. Not adding more to your life, but removing what's not essential, until what remains is strong, focused, and free. Marcus Aurelius lived this way. Despite being emperor of the most powerful empire in the world, he didn't live lavishly. He didn't chase pleasure or status. His writings and meditations are shockingly humble. He reminds himself to wake up early, to serve others, to resist anger, to stay grounded. He didn't need to write those things. He was the ruler of Rome. But he did it anyway, every day, because he understood that without continuous self-discipline, the mind decays. It wanders. It forgets what matters. And Marcus didn't want to forget. He wanted to live every day in accordance with reason, duty, and virtue. Not as a philosopher on a pedestal, but as a man in the world. That's what makes his discipline so powerful. It wasn't abstract, it was daily. Miyamoto Musashi, too, embodied this philosophy in action. By the end of his life, he had given up everything unnecessary. He lived alone, trained constantly, and rejected comfort. Not because he hated pleasure, but because he understood that comfort dulls the blade. He wanted to stay sharp, focused, clear. His book, The Book of Five Rings, wasn't just about sword fighting, it was about life. He wrote about mindset, simplicity, and strategy, about approaching every moment with total presence and intention. His life was a masterpiece of minimalist discipline, and not because he had less, but because he needed less. So how do we bring this kind of disciplined simplicity into our lives today? We're not emperors or samurai. We live in a world of chaos, notifications, obligations, endless noise. But that's exactly why this mindset is so important now more than ever. The more chaotic your world is, the more essential your discipline becomes. Start with your finances. How much of your spending is driven by impulse? How much is actually aligned with your values? Most people spend money not to meet needs, but to escape discomfort. We shop when we're bored, we chase status through objects, but minimalist discipline flips that mindset. It says, buy less, spend with intention, save more than you think you need. Because financial freedom isn't about having everything, it's about needing less. About building a life where your peace doesn't depend on your next paycheck or your next upgrade. Track your spending, cut out the excess, focus on what truly adds value. That's financial discipline. Next, think about your health. You don't need a perfect diet or a six-pack. What you need is consistency. You need a few simple habits: eating whole foods, moving your body daily, getting sleep. And you need to repeat them for the rest of your life. No extremes, no gimmicks, just sustainable practices. A 30-minute walk every day does more than a month of intense workouts you'll quit by next week. Small habits, repeated with discipline, become unstoppable. Musashi didn't become a master through a single burst of effort. He practiced endlessly. So can you. What about your relationships? Discipline matters here too. It's about being present, about choosing quality over quantity. It means showing up when it's hard, listening when you'd rather speak, staying honest when it's uncomfortable. Modern life tempts us to spread our energy thin, to be connected to everyone but deeply close to no one. Minimalist discipline in relationships means simplifying. Fewer distractions, fewer games, more depth, more intention. You don't need hundreds of people in your life. You need a few strong connections built through consistent effort and clarity. And then there's your mental space, your time, your attention. This is where minimalist discipline shines brightest. Most people fill their days with noise, emails, podcasts, social media, background chatter. They don't realize that attention is a finite resource. Every time you give it away to something meaningless, you rob yourself of clarity. Try this. Simplify your inputs. Unsubscribe from junk. Delete the apps that don't serve you. Stop scrolling endlessly. Create pockets of silence in your day. Let your mind breathe, because when you quiet the noise, your real thoughts come through. Your real priorities become visible. Now, a lot of people hear this and worry about burnout. They think discipline means working 16 hours a day, grinding non-stop, pushing themselves to the edge. That's not what we're talking about here. Sustainable discipline is different. It's not about intensity. It's about rhythm, about knowing when to push and when to rest, when to say yes and when to walk away. Aurelius rested. Musashi meditated and painted. They understood that a disciplined life includes recovery. So don't burn yourself out. Build a balanced system. Make room for rest, for joy, for reflection. Just make sure those moments are intentional, not escapes, but part of your rhythm. Think of discipline not as a restriction, but as a form of love. You brush your teeth every day, not because it's exciting, but because you care about your long-term health. You budget not because you hate money, but because you respect your future. You train your body not out of vanity, but out of self-respect. Every disciplined act is a way of saying, I'm building something that lasts. And the more you repeat those acts, the more natural they become. Eventually, you don't even think about them. They just are. Here's your call to action. Choose one major area of your life to simplify and discipline. Just one. Maybe it's your morning routine, your phone usage, your eating habits, your spending. Pick the one that feels most out of alignment right now, the one that creates the most friction, and apply minimalist discipline to it. Strip away the excess, focus on what works, and then stick with it. Not for a week, not for a challenge, but as a lifestyle, as a philosophy. Because in the end, discipline is not something you check off a list. It's something you live. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional, every day, in every area. Like Aurelius, like Musashi, quietly, consistently, powerfully. You don't need more. You need less, but better. Less distraction, less noise, less chaos, more purpose, more clarity, more strength. Discipline gives you that, not someday, not in some distant perfect future, but now. In this moment, in the way you choose to live your next hour, your next task, your next breath. So live simply, live clearly, live with discipline. Not because you have to, but because you choose to. That's the way of the Stoic. That's the way of the samurai. And it can be your way too. They called him mad, dangerous, even evil. Friedrich Nietzsche wasn't just a philosopher, he was a cultural earthquake, a man whose words were so provocative, so radically different from anything the world had heard, that they still echo uncomfortably in lecture halls, religious institutions, and governments today. God is dead. There are no facts, only interpretations. What does not kill me makes me stronger. These aren't just quotes, they are philosophical bombs, and they're not meant to comfort you, they're meant to wake you up. Nietzsche wasn't interested in making people feel good. He wanted to force people to see the world as it truly is, without illusions, without filters, without lies. This video isn't about watered-down philosophy. It's not going to give you feel-good aphorisms or surface-level self-help tricks. What you're about to explore are the very ideas that got Nietzsche cast out of the academic world, condemned by the church, and misinterpreted by history itself. Ideas that society doesn't want you to think about too deeply, because if you did, you might start questioning everything. You might stop obeying. You might stop conforming. You might start thinking for yourself. And in a world built on systems of control, whether religious, moral, political, or cultural, there's nothing more dangerous than someone who truly thinks for themselves. Nietzsche's work dismantles everything we're taught to accept without question. Morality? He said most of it was born out of weakness and resentment. Religion? A crutch for those too afraid to face the reality of life without a cosmic father figure. Truth? An illusion, useful perhaps, but ultimately subjective. He didn't offer solutions in the way people wanted. He offered challenges. He handed his readers a mirror, but it didn't flatter, it confronted, and that's what makes him so dangerous. He forces you to ask, what if the way I've been living, thinking, and believing is all based on fear? What if everything I thought was good is just a lie told to keep me tame? Friedrich Nietzsche was not an easy man to understand. His writing is poetic, often cryptic, and laced with metaphor. But beneath the complexity is a core of raw, unsettling truth. He looked around at modern life and saw decay, people worshipping comfort, equality, and conformity, while calling it progress. He believed that to truly live, to become powerful, to become you had to burn away those illusions. You had to become willing to walk alone, to suffer, to create your own values. He called it becoming who you are, a task most people will avoid their entire lives. This video will take you deep into Nietzsche's most controversial and forbidden ideas, truths that mainstream culture is too afraid to teach. We'll explore 7 of his most dangerous philosophies, breaking each one down in a way that's clear, direct, and brutally honest. Whether you've never read a word of Nietzsche, or you've wrestled with his work for years, this is your chance to see the side of him that most people never dare to confront. These are not ideas for the faint of heart. But if you're ready to question everything, morality, faith, identity, even existence itself, then keep watching. Because once you see the world through Nietzsche's eyes, there's no going back. Before Nietzsche came along, morality was seen as something sacred, stable, and universal. In the West, most people believed that there was a clear line between good and evil, and that line had been handed down from religion, especially Christianity. Being good meant being humble, obedient, selfless, modest. Being bad meant being proud, ambitious, rebellious, or selfish. Philosophers like Immanuel Kant had tried to give morality a rational foundation, something eternal and unshakable. According to this traditional view, moral rules applied to everyone, regardless of time or place. They were absolute. There was no room for negotiation. If the rule said don't lie, then lying was always wrong, no matter the situation. This kind of moral thinking had deep roots in religious commandments and was enforced not just by institutions like the church, but by the culture at large. Then Nietzsche came along and threw a grenade into the entire idea of morality. He didn't just question what we considered moral, he questioned why we even had morality in the first place. He asked, who benefits from these rules? Who created them? And what if morality itself was based on weakness, fear, and resentment, not strength, truth, or goodness? Nietzsche believed that the traditional morality most people followed wasn't noble or enlightened at all. It was a coping mechanism, a clever trick invented by the weak to hold back the strong. He called this slave morality. According to Nietzsche, there are two basic types of morality: master morality and slave morality. Master morality comes from those who are powerful, independent, and self-assured. These people, whether they're leaders, warriors, artists, or thinkers, don't ask for permission to live as they see fit. They create their own values. For them, good means strong, creative, courageous, self-reliant. Bad means weak, cowardly, or uninspired. In contrast, slave morality is born out of powerlessness. It's the worldview of those who feel oppressed, small, or incapable of changing their circumstances. Instead of celebrating strength and ambition, slave morality flips the script. It says that being humble, obedient, and self-sacrificing is good, while being powerful, proud, or successful is evil. But Nietzsche saw this not as virtue, but as resentment disguised as morality. In his book, On the Genealogy of Morality, Nietzsche describes how the weak, unable to compete with the strong, began to hate them in secret. But since they couldn't defeat them in reality, they did something more cunning. They changed the narrative. They moralized their weakness. They called their fear humility, their obedience goodness, their submission virtue, and they labeled the strong, those who didn't play by these rules, as cruel, sinful, or evil. Over time, this slave morality became the dominant moral system in society, reinforced by religion, education, and culture. It became so widespread that people forgot it was ever invented. They started to believe it was simply true. Nietzsche saw this as a dangerous illusion. He believed that this kind of morality didn't elevate humanity, it shackled it. It kept people small, bitter, and afraid of their own potential, instead of pushing themselves to grow stronger, to become more independent, more creative, more honest. They were taught to suppress those instincts, to feel guilty for wanting more, to be ashamed of their desires, their ambitions, their strength. In Nietzsche's view, morality had become a tool of control, not a set of universal truths, but a strategy to keep powerful individuals in check, to flatten difference, and to enforce conformity. This is why Nietzsche's critique is so explosive. He wasn't just saying that some moral rules are outdated or inconsistent. He was saying that the whole system is corrupt from the roots up. That morality, what most people consider to be sacred, is actually a weapon used to manipulate human behavior and maintain social order. And once you start to see morality this way, it changes everything. It makes you ask, am I being good because I believe in it, or because I've been trained to obey? Are my values really mine, or are they someone else's idea of what I should be? The implications of this are massive. If morality is just a social construct, something invented by human beings to serve specific agendas, then it's not eternal, it's not absolute, it can change. It has changed many times throughout history, and more importantly, it means that individuals have the right, and perhaps even the duty, to question it, to go beyond good and evil, as Nietzsche said, to create their own values. This is where Nietzsche becomes truly dangerous to institutions, because a society full of people who create their own values is a society that's very hard to control. You can't manipulate them with guilt, you can't scare them into obedience, you can't shame them into submission. They've seen behind the curtain. This is also why Nietzsche is so often misunderstood. People accuse him of promoting chaos, selfishness, or even cruelty. But that's a shallow reading. Nietzsche wasn't saying, do whatever you want, or hurt others to get ahead. He was calling for honesty, for the courage to face life without comforting lies, for strength, not just physical strength, but moral and psychological independence. He wanted people to stop pretending, to stop hiding behind moral slogans and start living with integrity on their own terms. But society doesn't like people who live on their own terms. They're unpredictable. They ask too many questions. They break rules. They don't play nice. And that's why Nietzsche's ideas remain to this day deeply uncomfortable, because they force us to look at ourselves not as moral beings defined by some higher law, but as complex creatures with instincts, drives, and desires that don't always fit into neat little boxes labeled good or bad. Nietzsche challenges us to move past those boxes altogether. In a world where we're constantly told what's right and wrong by media, religion, politics, and even social trends, Nietzsche offers a radical alternative. Think for yourself. Don't inherit your values. Don't blindly follow moral rules just because everyone else does. Examine them, question them, break them if they no longer serve your growth. That's not moral relativism in the shallow sense. It's moral responsibility. The responsibility to live authentically, to build your own compass, and to reject the lies that keep you small. That's Nietzsche's war on morality, not a call for chaos, but a call for courage. The courage to stop obeying and to start becoming. When Nietzsche wrote the words "God is dead," it wasn't a victory cry. It wasn't a celebration of atheism or a smug rejection of faith. It was a warning, a declaration of something he believed had already happened, but that most people hadn't fully realized yet. In his book, The Gay Science, he tells the story of a madman who runs into the marketplace shouting that God is dead and that we have killed him. The crowd laughs at him. They don't understand. But Nietzsche's message wasn't meant to be funny. It was tragic. He was pointing out that in the modern age, belief in God, especially in the Christian God, was slowly eroding. Science, reason, and secular thinking had replaced the need for a divine authority in many people's lives. Yet, despite this, people were still living as if nothing had changed. They clung to the same moral values, the same cultural habits, the same worldview, but without the foundation that had once justified them. So when Nietzsche said God is dead, he wasn't just talking about religion. He was talking about the collapse of a whole system of meaning. For centuries, people looked to God for answers about right and wrong, purpose and destiny, life and death. Religion provided not only hope but structure. It gave society a shared story, a sense of moral direction, a feeling that life had ultimate meaning. But if God no longer holds that central place, if he's no longer the author of truth, then what's left? That's the terrifying question Nietzsche was asking. What happens to a civilization when the story that held it together is no longer believable? This is the part many people misunderstand. Nietzsche wasn't celebrating the death of God, he was mourning it. He saw it as a kind of spiritual catastrophe. He wrote that people had wiped away the entire horizon, that we were now adrift in a world without clear direction. Without God, there is no absolute truth, no divine justice, no cosmic reward or punishment, no guarantee that life has a purpose. And Nietzsche feared that most people weren't ready to face that reality. They would either fall into despair, or worse, try to keep the old morality alive without realizing that its foundation was gone. He called this kind of thinking nihilism, the sense that nothing really matters anymore because there's no higher meaning behind anything. And Nietzsche didn't think nihilism was just a personal crisis, it was a cultural one. He believed it was going to infect everything: art, politics, education, morality. People would become disoriented, anxious and hollow. They would chase distractions, wealth, comfort, entertainment, anything to avoid facing the truth. And in the vacuum left by religion, Nietzsche feared that people would turn to false idols, nationalism, ideology, mass movements. They would trade one blind faith for another. That's why Nietzsche wrote so urgently. He wasn't trying to destroy people's beliefs. He was trying to wake them up to the fact that those beliefs were already dying, and that they needed to be replaced with something deeper, something stronger, something real. But why is this idea so suppressed? Why is it rarely discussed openly, especially in mainstream education or popular culture? Because it's threatening. Religion isn't just a personal belief system, it's a pillar of cultural stability. It provides a shared sense of identity. It tells people how to live, how to treat each other, how to find meaning in suffering. If that pillar is removed, it creates fear. Not just fear of eternal damnation, but fear of disorder, moral chaos, spiritual emptiness. Nietzsche understood that most people would rather cling to comforting illusions than confront the abyss of meaninglessness. And so institutions, religious, educational, even political, often avoid talking about Nietzsche, or they reduce him to a misunderstood madman, a nihilist, or a dangerous rebel. They paint him as someone who wanted to destroy everything, when in truth, he was trying to help rebuild something more honest. Nietzsche didn't believe that life without God had to be meaningless. In fact, he thought it could be more meaningful, but only if we had the courage to create that meaning ourselves. He wrote about the need to become who you are, to live as a creator of values rather than a follower of old ones. But this is a terrifying freedom. It means that there are no guarantees, no divine backup, no one to tell you if you're right or wrong. It puts the full weight of responsibility on your shoulders. And that's why Nietzsche is so feared, not because he took away God, but because he gave you no one to hide behind. His philosophy demands spiritual maturity. It asks you to grow up, not just emotionally or intellectually, but existentially. It demands that you look at the world without filters and still choose to live with purpose, to build meaning where none is given. This is the opposite of nihilism, but it's harder. It's a philosophy for those willing to face the void and still say yes to life. It's for those who are brave enough to create their own compass in a world where the old maps no longer work. Nietzsche's attack on religion wasn't meant to strip life of meaning. It was meant to strip away borrowed meaning, the kind handed down uncritically, the kind that keeps people obedient rather than free. He saw traditional religion as something that had become stale, rigid, lifeless, a system that once gave life structure but now only suffocated it. He wasn't against spirituality. He wasn't against awe or reverence or the search for higher truths. But he was against anything that discouraged people from thinking for themselves, from embracing their full power as creators, from becoming more than they are. In a sense, Nietzsche was calling for a new kind of spirituality, one not built on fear or obedience, but on strength, self-honesty, and personal transformation. But that's dangerous to institutions built on conformity. It's dangerous to power structures that rely on mass belief. That's why Nietzsche is rarely taught in full, why his most profound insights are ignored, misquoted, or stripped of their deeper meaning. Because if people truly understood what he was saying, they might start asking questions no one wants to answer. The death of God, in Nietzsche's eyes, was not the end of philosophy. It was the beginning. It was a doorway into a new kind of life, one where meaning isn't handed to you. You must forge it with your own hands. But that's not a path for everyone. It requires strength, clarity, and above all, courage. Nietzsche believed most people would turn away from that challenge. They would retreat into dogma, distractions, or despair. But for those who don't, those willing to confront the terrifying freedom of a world without God, Nietzsche's philosophy becomes a guide, not to destruction, but to rebirth, not to emptiness, but to authenticity. That is the real meaning behind God is dead. Not a slogan, not a joke, a mirror. And when you look into it, the question isn't just what you believe. It's whether you're ready to live without illusions, whether you're ready to become the author of your own life. One of the most misunderstood and misused concepts in all of Nietzsche's philosophy is the idea of the will to power. Many people assume, often without ever reading Nietzsche, that this idea is about domination, about crushing others to get ahead, about using violence, cruelty, or force to impose your will on the world. And in part, that misconception isn't entirely their fault. Nietzsche's writing is intense, poetic, and sometimes cryptic. He didn't always define his terms clearly, and he often used metaphor and irony in ways that confused even his closest readers. But the biggest reason people misunderstand the will to power is because others have distorted it intentionally. Especially in the 20th century, this idea was twisted beyond recognition by people who wanted to use Nietzsche's name and reputation to justify horrific acts of control and violence. Let's start by understanding what Nietzsche actually meant. At its core, the will to power is not about hurting others. It's not about politics, war, or fascist conquest. It's about life itself. Nietzsche believed that everything in existence, every organism, every person, every system, is driven not just by survival, not just by reproduction, but by a deeper, more essential force, the desire to grow, to expand, to assert, to express, to become. That force is what he called the will to power. It's the inner drive behind all creativity, all ambitions, all transformation. It's what pushes a tree to grow through concrete. It's what drives a child to speak, a thinker to question, a dreamer to act. It's not necessarily violent, it's vital. It's not about destruction, it's about expression. It's not about power over others, it's about power over yourself. This idea was Nietzsche's alternative to other dominant theories of life. At the time, many philosophers and scientists were heavily influenced by Darwinism, the idea that life is just a struggle to survive. Nietzsche disagreed. He thought survival was just the beginning. Living creatures don't just want to exist, they want to flourish, to become more, to shape the world around them. That's the will to power. And in human beings, this will manifest not only in physical ways, but in psychological and creative ones. It shows up in the desire to grow beyond our limits, to overcome fear, to reject mediocrity, to create values that reflect who we truly are. It's the driving force behind every act of greatness, not because it seeks applause or status, but because it must express itself, just like a flame has to burn. Where people go wrong is when they interpret this idea as permission to dominate others. Nietzsche never said that. In fact, he warned against the kind of people who seek power only to control others. To Nietzsche, true power was internal. The highest expression of the will to power wasn't found in violence or tyranny, it was found in self-overcoming. That means confronting your own weaknesses, fears, lies, and limitations and rising above them. It means not settling for who you've been told to be. It means choosing to evolve rather than stay comfortable. Nietzsche admired individuals who were able to harness this inner force to create, to transform, to live authentically. He wasn't interested in bullies. He was interested in creators, people who could shape their own destiny. But why is this idea so feared by society? Because a person who fully embraces the will to power is difficult to control. They don't obey blindly. They don't conform for approval. They don't apologize for being different. They live with intensity, purpose, and independence. And in a world that often rewards obedience and punishes deviation, such people are seen as threats. Systems, whether political, religious, or cultural, tend to work best when people follow the rules, stay in line, and don't ask too many questions. But someone who lives from their inner strength, who questions everything, who refuses to be boxed in by external labels, that person can't be managed. And that's exactly what Nietzsche wanted to awaken in people. The courage to break free from roles, to stop pretending, to start becoming. Of course, this powerful idea didn't sit well with everyone. In the early 20th century, Nietzsche's writings were picked up and horribly distorted by the Nazi regime in Germany. They took the concept of the will to power and twisted it into a justification for militarism, racial supremacy, and totalitarian control. They even tried to portray Nietzsche as a prophet of the Aryan master race, which is not only false, but goes against everything Nietzsche actually believed. He despised nationalism, he hated anti-Semitism, and he warned constantly against blind groupthink and mob mentality, two things the Nazis completely embodied. But unfortunately, Nietzsche wasn't around to defend himself. He died long before the Nazis rose to power. His sister, who was deeply involved with nationalist ideology, edited and manipulated his unpublished notes to fit their agenda. She essentially hijacked his legacy to support a cause he would have found repulsive. That's part of why Nietzsche's name became so controversial for much of the 20th century. He was wrongly seen as a philosopher of cruelty, elitism, or even fascism. But if you actually read his work, not just cherry-picked quotes but full texts, it becomes clear that Nietzsche wasn't advocating for tyranny. He was calling for liberation. Liberation from false morals, from inherited beliefs, from herd mentalities, from internal weakness. His philosophy was never about conquest of others, it was about conquest of the self. The will to power is a dangerous idea, not because it leads people to harm others, but because it demands that they confront themselves honestly. It strips away excuses. It exposes the games we play to stay small and safe. It asks, are you living the life you were told to live, or the life you want to live? Are you repeating what others taught you, or are you creating something new? Are you following the script, or writing your own? To embrace the will to power is to commit to a life of constant becoming. It means accepting discomfort as part of growth. It means seeking challenge rather than comfort, depth rather than distraction. And most of all, it means refusing to let fear or guilt dictate who you are. This is why Nietzsche admired artists, rebels, and independent thinkers, people who dared to express their full selves, even when the world pushed back. Because that's where real power lives, not in domination, but in creation, not in conformity, but in authenticity. And that is why society will always be wary of this idea, because a person who lives by the will to power cannot be tamed. They don't just survive, they thrive. They don't follow, they lead, even if no one else comes with them. They are not dependent on systems of approval, praise, or validation. They are self-directed, self-governing, and self-created. And in a world that profits from your insecurity, your obedience, and your fear, that kind of person is revolutionary. So when Nietzsche speaks of the will to power, he's not handing you a weapon to use against the world. He's handing you a challenge to become who you are, fully and unapologetically, to rise above inherited values and small ambitions, to find your own voice, your own path, your own fire, and follow it no matter what. That kind of strength terrifies people who live by imitation, but for those who are ready to live by truth, the will to power is not dangerous, it's the beginning of freedom. When Nietzsche wrote Beyond Good and Evil, he wasn't just trying to shock people with bold claims, he was trying to tear down an illusion that had controlled human behavior for centuries. The illusion that good and evil are fixed, eternal truths. Most of us grow up thinking that right and wrong are black and white, that moral rules are universal, that what's considered good today has always been good and always will be. But Nietzsche disagreed. He believed that these ideas, what we call morality, are not objective truths handed down from the universe or a divine being. Instead, they are human inventions, shaped by culture, power, fear, and historical context. To him, what people call good or evil often says more about their personal values, social roles, or hidden resentments than about any real, universal truth. Nietzsche argued that there is no single timeless definition of good or evil. These concepts change over time from place to place and even from person to person. What one society calls evil, another might celebrate as virtuous. Take strength, for example. In ancient warrior cultures like Sparta or among Roman nobility, power, pride, and dominance were seen as noble traits. To be strong and victorious wasn't just acceptable, it was honorable. But in more modern religious cultures, those same traits are condemned as sinful or arrogant. Instead, humility, submission, and meekness are lifted up as moral ideals. Nietzsche saw this shift not as progress, but as a kind of moral reversal, a change driven by resentment, fear, and weakness rather than enlightenment. That's why Nietzsche was so obsessed with uncovering the origins of our moral beliefs. He didn't just want to know what people believed. He wanted to know why they believed it. He wanted to dig underneath the surface and ask, who created these values? Whose interests do they serve? Are they helping us grow stronger and freer, or are they keeping us tame and obedient? For Nietzsche, most of what we call morality wasn't created by noble, free-spirited individuals, but by the weak, by those who couldn't win through strength or creativity, and so turned to guilt, shame, and fear to bring others down to their level. This ties back to the slave morality idea, but here it takes on a broader meaning. Morality itself becomes a tool, not a compass toward truth, but a weapon to maintain power structures and suppress individual potential. This idea is radical because it doesn't just challenge personal beliefs. It threatens every authority that uses morality to justify itself. Governments rely on the belief that their laws reflect moral truths. Religions claim to possess divine guidance about good and evil. Schools, political parties, even social movements, many of them base their legitimacy on the idea that they are morally right. But if Nietzsche is correct, if good and evil are not absolute but subjective, then all these claims begin to fall apart. Their authority becomes fragile, their laws become preferences, their truths become opinions, and for institutions that depend on obedience and belief, that's terrifying. Think about how often morality has shifted throughout history. At one time, slavery was not only legal, it was considered morally acceptable in many cultures. Women were denied education and political rights not out of cruelty, people claimed, but because it was proper and natural. Burning heretics, waging holy wars, persecuting scientists, these were all done with moral justification. What changed? Not some universal truth suddenly appearing, but the people, the culture, the power dynamics. Morality evolved, which means it was never absolute to begin with. Nietzsche saw this clearly, and he warned that anyone who believes in fixed moral truths is either naive or being manipulated. But if morality is subjective, doesn't that lead to chaos? Doesn't it mean people can just do whatever they want with no consequences? That's the fear most people have, and that's why Nietzsche's philosophy is often seen as dangerous. But Nietzsche wasn't promoting lawlessness or selfishness. He wasn't saying, there's no such thing as good or bad, so hurt others if it benefits you. He was saying something much deeper. True morality has to come from within. It has to be created, not copied. It has to be earned, not inherited. That's much harder. It means taking full responsibility for your choices without hiding behind a rule book. It means acting with integrity, not because a priest or a politician tells you to, but because it's consistent with who you've chosen to become. This is where Nietzsche's concept links directly to his criticism of the herd mentality. Most people, he said, don't really think for themselves. They adopt the values of their culture, their family, their religion, without ever questioning them. They follow the crowd, they conform, they believe what's popular, not what's true. Nietzsche called these people the herd, not because they're evil, but because they're passive. They fear standing out, they fear responsibility, they would rather be safe than free. And Nietzsche had no patience for that. He believed the herd mentality was one of the greatest threats to human potential, because when everyone thinks the same way, when everyone obeys the same shallow moral code, there's no room for greatness, no room for new ideas, or for people to rise above the norm. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche wasn't trying to destroy morality altogether. He was trying to destroy lazy morality, the kind of morality that is blindly accepted, never examined, and used to shame or control others. He believed that the future of humanity depended on a new kind of individual, someone who had the strength to go beyond the inherited ideas of good and evil, and to create their own values. Someone who could look at the chaos of life, the complexity, the uncertainty, and still say, I will choose what matters, I will live by what I believe, not by what I'm told. That is what Nietzsche called the free spirit. Not someone without ethics, but someone whose ethics come from conscious creation, not unconscious imitation. Of course, this idea is deeply unsettling to those in power. A society built on conformity cannot function if too many people start thinking for themselves. If people begin to see that morality is fluid and contextual, then laws, traditions, and hierarchies lose their divine aura. They're exposed as human creations, changeable, fallible, often self-serving. That's why Nietzsche's work is still feared today. Not because it's morally corrupt, but because it's morally liberating. It tells you that you don't have to accept the labels given to you, that you can reject the story society tells you and write your own. But it also warns you that this freedom comes with a cost. The responsibility to live deliberately, to judge with care, and to bear the burden of creating your own meaning. So when Nietzsche speaks of going beyond good and evil, he's not pushing for anarchy, he's pushing for authenticity. He's challenging you to examine every belief you hold and ask, is this truly mine? Or did I inherit it without thinking? He's inviting you to stop being part of the herd and start being an individual. Not in a shallow, rebellious way, but in a deep, existential way. And that is far more dangerous to the world than any act of violence, because one free individual can challenge an entire system just by refusing to play by its rules. Nietzsche's destruction of the illusion of universal truths isn't meant to leave you hopeless. It's meant to wake you up, to shake you free from the dream that morality is settled, easy and permanent. It's not. It's a battle, a creative, painful, necessary battle, to live with integrity in a world that often punishes those who don't conform. But for Nietzsche, that battle is worth it, because only by going beyond good and evil can you become something greater than just a product of your environment. You can become yourself. Among Nietzsche's most profound and perhaps most misunderstood ideas is the concept of amor fati, which translates from Latin as love of fate. But this isn't some poetic phrase or passive acceptance of whatever life throws at you. It's a radical mindset, a total transformation of how we view suffering, tragedy, and the painful parts of life. Amor fati is the act of not just enduring your fate, but loving it, embracing every moment, every hardship, every failure, as if you had chosen it yourself. Nietzsche didn't want us to merely tolerate suffering. He wanted us to affirm it, to say yes to life not just when it's easy and pleasurable, but when it's brutal, unfair, and heartbreaking. This is not an easy philosophy to live by, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. In a world obsessed with comfort, optimization, and positivity, the idea of embracing pain sounds almost offensive. We're told to avoid suffering at all costs. Take the pill, buy the product, follow the morning routine, chase happiness like it's a prize you can win. Every self-help book, motivational speech, and Instagram quote seems to promise the same thing: less pain, more pleasure. So when Nietzsche comes along and says, "Don't just accept your suffering, love it," it feels wrong, dangerous even. But Nietzsche wasn't saying we should seek out misery for its own sake. He was saying that if pain is unavoidable, and it is, then your only real choice is how you respond to it. Will you curse your life and grow bitter? Or will you find the strength to transform your suffering into something meaningful? That's what makes Amor Fati so controversial. It challenges the modern idea that a good life is a painless one. It asks you to give up the illusion of control, the belief that if you just try hard enough, you can avoid all hardship. Amor Fati doesn't pretend that suffering is noble or romantic. It simply demands that you stop running from it. Because once you stop resisting your fate, you stop being its victim, you become its master, and this is the ultimate reversal. Instead of life pushing you around, you absorb everything it throws at you and make it part of your power. Like fire consuming fuel, Amor Fati turns every obstacle into energy. Every disappointment becomes a teacher. Every loss becomes part of your story, not a scar, but a symbol of resilience. To live with Amor Fati means to live without resentment. That's not the same as being numb or emotionless. It means refusing to waste your life wishing things were different. Think of a failure that still haunts you. A relationship that ended painfully. A dream that collapsed. Amor Fati doesn't say, "That didn't matter." It says, "That mattered, and I embrace it anyway. It happened. It shaped you." You don't have to be grateful for the pain itself, but you can be grateful for the strength it gave you, the clarity it forced upon you, the fire it lit inside you. Nietzsche believed that suffering was essential to growth, and that true greatness was impossible without it. He didn't want to eliminate suffering, he wanted to redeem it. Now imagine applying Amor Fati in your everyday life. You wake up late and miss an important meeting. Instead of spiraling into self-hate, you treat it as a lesson in humility and preparation. You lose a job, not just as a setback, but as a redirection, a chance to rethink what you truly want. You go through heartbreak, but instead of drowning in anger or blame, you absorb the pain and let it make you wiser, softer, deeper. Amor Fati turns you into an alchemist, someone who takes pain and turns it into purpose. It doesn't erase suffering, but it changes its meaning. And meaning is everything. This way of thinking is rare. It goes against almost every message you receive from modern society. Companies don't want you to love your fate. They want you to feel like something's missing, so you keep buying. Therapists, self-help influencers, and lifestyle gurus often promise relief from suffering, not tools to live with it. Even religion sometimes turns suffering into a transaction, something to be endured now for a reward later. But Nietzsche's Amor Fati is different. It doesn't offer rewards. It doesn't promise peace. It offers something more real. The ability to stand in the middle of a storm and still say yes to life. Not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. And this is why society doesn't promote Amor Fati. It's too demanding. It puts the burden back on the individual. It says there are no excuses, no easy exits. You don't get to blame fate or parents or the system, not if you're serious about growth. Amor Fati terrifies people because it removes all illusions of control and comfort. It demands radical acceptance, not passive surrender, but an active, fierce embrace of reality, however ugly it may be. That kind of acceptance isn't common. It's rare. It requires strength, not just emotional strength, but existential strength. The ability to live in a world that doesn't care about your plans and still keep going. Nietzsche once wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati." that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. This isn't just about putting a positive spin on things. It's about developing the inner muscle to face life in its raw, unfiltered form, and to not just survive, but to affirm it. This is where Nietzsche's thinking intersects with the lives of people we admire most. The artists who suffer and still create, the leaders who fail and still rise, the survivors who've seen the worst and still love life. Whether they call it amor fati or not, they live it. So what would it look like if you adopted amor fati? It would mean ending the war against your past. No more regrets that rot you from the inside. It would mean stopping the chase for the perfect future. No more needing life to be a certain way before you allow yourself to be at peace. It would mean looking at every twist in your story and saying, I accept this, I own this, I use this. It's not about being happy all the time. It's about being unbreakable. Not in the sense that nothing touches you, but in the sense that nothing destroys your spirit. You bend, you bleed, you keep walking. And in that, amor fati becomes more than a mindset. It becomes a way of life, a rebellion against victimhood, a refusal to see yourself as cursed. It's not something you achieve overnight. It's something you practice, especially in the moments when it's hardest. When you're broke, alone, rejected, afraid. That's when amor fati is most needed. It reminds you that you are not powerless, that fate isn't your enemy, that everything you face, no matter how unfair, is raw material for becoming who you're meant to be. Nietzsche knew this idea wouldn't be popular. He knew most people would prefer false comfort to painful truth, but he also believed that the greatest among us, the ones who don't just live but create, are the ones who stop asking why me and start asking what now. The ones who treat suffering not as something to be avoided, but as something to be transformed. That's amor fati, not a passive life but a powerful one. Not the end of struggle but the beginning of strength. Not the denial of pain but the embrace of its purpose. And once you see the world this way, you start to realize maybe fate isn't the enemy, maybe it's the furnace, and maybe you, just like Nietzsche hoped, were born to walk through fire. Few of Nietzsche's ideas have been as misunderstood, misused, or misrepresented as the concept of the Ubermensch, often translated as the Superman or Overman. At first glance, the word itself can feel intimidating or elitist. It conjures up images of dominance, superiority, and a kind of cold, emotionless ideal of perfection. Worse, in the 20th century, the term was completely hijacked and twisted by fascist regimes, particularly the Nazis, who used it to support racist, nationalist ideologies that Nietzsche himself would have found revolting. But Nietzsche's original vision of the Ubermensch was nothing like this. It had nothing to do with race, cruelty, or ruling over others. In fact, it was a deeply personal, spiritual, and psychological idea. It was Nietzsche's answer to the question, how do we live meaningfully in a world without God, without absolute truths, and without external guidance? To understand the Ubermensch, you have to go back to Nietzsche's fundamental belief that we are living in a world where traditional values have collapsed. God is dead, as he famously said. The old systems that once told us what to do, what to believe, and how to live are no longer credible, not because we don't need meaning, but because those systems no longer match the complexity of modern life. So what happens when the old values die? Do we fall into despair, nihilism, and apathy? That was the danger Nietzsche saw, but he also saw a way out, a path forward. That path was the Ubermensch. The Ubermensch is not a physical being, it's not a biological upgrade or a comic book superhero. It's an ideal, a future version of humanity that creates its own values, lives with courage, and refuses to be defined by the limitations of society, religion, or herd thinking. The Ubermensch is someone who doesn't follow moral rules simply because they were taught to. Instead, they go beyond inherited systems and build something new from within. They are radically authentic. They are not afraid to be alone. They don't seek approval. They are self-created. Where most people look outside themselves for meaning, the Ubermensch looks inward and says, "I will decide what matters." This is why the Ubermensch is often misunderstood, because it doesn't offer easy answers. It requires intense self-reflection and courage. People often assume Nietzsche was saying some people are better than others by birth, that the Ubermensch is about being above other people. But Nietzsche's point wasn't about social hierarchy, it was about personal evolution. He wasn't saying some are born Ubermensch, he was saying you have to become one. It's a lifelong process of self-overcoming, where you confront your fears, your conditioning, your weaknesses, and move through them, not by pretending they don't exist, but by using them to grow. Now think about why this idea is so threatening to society. The Ubermensch doesn't conform, they don't need validation, they don't fit neatly into categories or obey institutions, and that's exactly what most systems of power fear. Governments, corporations, religions, all of them rely on mass behavior. They need people to follow the rules, buy the products, stay in line, and not ask too many questions. But the Ubermensch asks all the questions. They tear down what's fake. They refuse to play roles that aren't true to them. And because of this, they are seen as dangerous, unpredictable, even subversive. Society functions best when people agree on the same values. It thrives on collective myths: money, status, tradition, morality, identity. But the Ubermensch threatens to break those myths. Not recklessly, but honestly. They look at the world and say, "These values no longer serve me, so I will make my own." That kind of spiritual independence is rare, and it's uncomfortable for those who have invested everything in stability and sameness. And so, throughout history, the Ubermensch has been ignored, attacked, or twisted into something unrecognizable. This brings us to one of the darkest chapters in Nietzsche's legacy, the Nazi distortion of the Ubermensch. During the rise of Hitler's regime, Nietzsche's works were selectively edited and manipulated, especially by his sister, Elisabeth Forster Nietzsche, who was a supporter of fascist ideology. She removed context, reinterpreted his metaphors, and rebranded the Ubermensch as a symbol of racial superiority and German nationalism. Nothing could be further from Nietzsche's original meaning. He despised nationalism. He was openly critical of anti-Semitism. He believed the state was a dangerous form of control, and that herd thinking, whether religious or political, was poison to the individual spirit. The Nazi Ubermensch was about domination of others. Nietzsche's Ubermensch was about mastery of self. Unfortunately, these distortions stuck. For decades, Nietzsche's name was associated with fascism and elitism. People who had never read a page of his work dismissed him as toxic or extremist. But the truth is, Nietzsche's Ubermensch is a deeply human ideal. It doesn't require genius or perfection, it requires courage. The courage to step outside your comfort zone. The courage to unlearn what you've been taught. The courage to become something new. And that's not something you're born into, it's something you build brick by brick, choice by choice. You can see glimpses of the Ubermensch in many of history's most transformative figures, not because they called themselves that, but because they lived with that same inner fire. People who broke free from convention, created something new, and inspired others to rise above limitations. Living like the Ubermensch doesn't mean rejecting all values. It means choosing your values consciously, living by them authentically, and being willing to pay the price of that freedom. It means facing the pain of loneliness, the burden of choice, the weight of responsibility, and walking through it anyway, because the reward is real freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want, but the freedom to live without lies. To become someone who doesn't need applause, who doesn't need to fit in, who doesn't need to be told who they are, because they've already decided. This is why Nietzsche described the Ubermensch as the meaning of the earth. He wasn't pointing to heaven or to an afterlife or to some divine order. He was pointing here, this life, this body, this moment. He wanted us to stop chasing escape and start embracing transformation. The Ubermensch doesn't transcend life. They affirm it, fully, fiercely, no matter how messy, complicated, or painful it gets. So when you hear people talk about Nietzsche's Ubermensch as some cold, inhuman ideal, or worse, as a symbol of oppression, remember this: Nietzsche's Ubermensch is the opposite of that. It's not about being above others. It's about being beyond lies, beyond fear, beyond imitation. It's about becoming so deeply yourself that the world can no longer seduce you with comfort or scare you into silence. In a time where everyone is chasing external validation, where identity is packaged and sold, and where conformity is often rewarded more than courage, the idea of the Ubermensch is more relevant than ever. It calls us to rise not above others but above ourselves, to outgrow who we were yesterday, to refuse to live a second-hand life, to become, as Nietzsche might say, the author of our own existence. And that, more than any political system, religious belief, or cultural trend, is what truly scares the world. A human being who no longer needs to be told what to believe, who to be, or how to live, is a human being who cannot be controlled, and that, Nietzsche believed, is the future we must all dare to create. Of all Nietzsche's ideas, eternal recurrence might be the most haunting, the most difficult to digest, and the most spiritually intense. It's not a scientific theory or a mystical prophecy. It's a thought experiment, a challenge that strikes directly at the core of how we live our lives. Nietzsche asks you to imagine this. What if every single moment of your life, every joy, every pain, every small decision, every heartbreak, every embarrassment, every success, and every failure had to be lived over and over again for eternity, not once more, but endlessly? Not as a metaphor, but as literal reality. You wouldn't just be reborn to live again in a general sense. You would relive your exact life in perfect detail, without change, on an eternal loop. Would you welcome that thought, or would it crush you? This is eternal recurrence, the idea that time is not linear, but circular, that your life, just as it is, would be repeated forever. Nietzsche introduces this concept in The Gay Science and develops it further in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. It's not meant to be taken as a literal prediction about the structure of the universe, although some have tried to argue it that way, but rather as a powerful philosophical test. Nietzsche doesn't ask whether it's true. He asks, what would it mean for your life if it were true? Would you live differently? Would you still make the same choices? Would you still waste time on regrets, on bitterness, on fear? Or would you rise to the occasion and start living as if every single moment mattered infinitely? At first glance, the idea is terrifying. The thought of reliving your worst moments forever is unbearable for most people. Think about the mistakes you've made, the people you've hurt, the times you were too afraid to act. Now imagine doing it all again, and again, forever. It's a nightmare if you've lived a life filled with regret or avoidance. And that's precisely Nietzsche's point. If the idea of eternal recurrence horrifies you, then maybe you're not living the life you actually want to live. Maybe you've been coasting, numbing yourself, hiding from your potential. Nietzsche believed that the purpose of this thought experiment was to shock you into clarity, to wake you up from the trance of habit and ask, am I living a life worth repeating? But here's the twist. Eternal recurrence isn't just a source of dread, it can also be a source of incredible power. Because if you can say yes to that eternal return, not just to your best days, but to your worst, then you've achieved something profound. You've embraced life fully. You've stopped wishing things were different. You've stopped trying to escape. You've learned how to live with such honesty, such intensity, such presence, that even your suffering has value. You've accepted your life not as a series of accidents, but as something you own completely. That kind of affirmation, that deep, unconditional yes to existence, is what Nietzsche called the highest form of strength. And that's the beauty of eternal recurrence. It's not about perfection. It's not about making every moment pleasurable. It's about living every moment deliberately. It's about being so alive, so connected to your choices and your path, that you would be willing to relive it all. Not because it was easy, but because it was real. Because you acted from your own truth. Because you didn't run. Because you faced it all and still said, "This is mine, I claim it." Practically speaking, eternal recurrence is a tool for radical self-responsibility. It forces you to think long-term, not just in years, but in eternity. Before making a decision, you can ask yourself, if I had to do this forever, would I still choose it? That doesn't mean every moment must be perfect or joyful, but it does mean you should treat every moment as significant. Every conversation, every habit, every relationship suddenly becomes weighty, meaningful. You stop living like time is disposable. You start paying attention. You start aligning your actions with your deepest values, because anything less would be hell to repeat forever. Now think about how this mindset stands in total opposition to the way most people live. In modern society, we're constantly encouraged to escape. We binge watch, we scroll endlessly, we medicate our boredom and numb our anxiety. We live for the weekend, we wait for vacations, we dream of the future and avoid the present. Time is something we kill, not something we treasure. People say things like, "I can't wait for this day to be over," or "let's just get through this year." But Nietzsche's eternal recurrence obliterates that kind of thinking. Because in his world, there is no escape, no fast forward, no redo. You either live with intention, or you suffer the consequences again and again. This is also why eternal recurrence is such a controversial idea. It's too intense for most people. It demands too much. It's easier to believe in a life with second chances, in an afterlife that wipes the slate clean, or in some cosmic justice that will make things right. Eternal recurrence offers no such comfort. It says, this is it, this moment, right now, forever. And that's terrifying to anyone who's not living in alignment with their truth. It's terrifying to those who feel trapped, unfulfilled, or lost, because it confronts them with the urgency to change. Society doesn't want you to think this way. It wants you to be distracted, compliant, endlessly consuming. It doesn't want you to ask big, terrifying questions about how you spend your time, who you are, or what you truly want. Eternal recurrence is dangerous because it wakes people up. It strips away the excuses. It puts the mirror in your face and asks, can you face yourself forever? And if the answer is no, then you know what needs to change. That's the real gift of this idea, not to punish you, but to liberate you. Because once you stop taking time for granted, you start living. Nietzsche knew this idea wouldn't be for everyone. In fact, he believed most people would reject it. They would label it absurd or depressing. But he also believed that the strongest souls, the ones brave enough to confront the weight of existence, would be transformed by it. They wouldn't be crushed by the thought of living their lives over and over. They would be inspired to make those lives worth repeating. And in doing so, they would rise above mediocrity, above fear, above regret. They would become creators of meaning, architects of value, and masters of time, not because they controlled the future, but because they honored the present. So what does eternal recurrence mean for you? It means stop waiting for your life to begin. Stop postponing your dreams, your honesty, your transformation. If you wouldn't be willing to live today 1,000 times over, then maybe it's time to change how you're living. Nietzsche isn't judging you, he's daring you to live so deeply and fully that even your pain becomes sacred, daring you to say yes to everything you are, daring you to become the kind of person who wouldn't fear eternity, but would welcome it, because every moment was real. That's the ultimate test. Not how much pleasure you've had, not how much you've achieved, but whether you've lived in such a way that you could relive it all forever and still say yes again. Eternal recurrence is not just a thought, it's a mirror, and what you see in it is entirely up to you. Now that we've walked through the storm of Nietzsche's most controversial and dangerous ideas, let's take a moment to stand still and reflect on everything we've just uncovered. These aren't just abstract philosophical concepts. They're deeply personal, deeply challenging, and, if you truly engage with them, profoundly transformative. We began with Nietzsche's War on Morality, where he tore apart the illusion that there is some universal, eternal good that applies to everyone equally. He exposed how most morality is born from fear, weakness, and resentment, not strength or truth, and challenged us to look deeper than surface-level definitions of right and wrong. Then we faced the existential earthquake of God is dead, not a celebration, but a mourning. Nietzsche wasn't attacking faith for fun. He was observing a world losing its religious anchor and asking, what will we do now, in a world where the old gods have stopped speaking? His answer wasn't comfort, it was responsibility. Without divine order, we are the ones who must shape meaning. In The Will to Power, we explored what drives life at its core, not just the will to survive, but the will to express, to grow, to overcome. Misused by history, misunderstood by many, this idea is not about conquest of others, it's about the ongoing conquest of self. The strength to rise again and again, not in violence, but in vision. Then came Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche's demand that we see moral values not as sacred commandments, but as human inventions, flexible, historical, and often political. This shakes the foundation of every institution that tells us how to live. And that's why it's feared, because once people start creating their own values, they can't be controlled by the old ones. With Amor Fati, we turned towards suffering and met it not with resistance, but with a radical embrace. Nietzsche dared us to not just endure our fate, but to love it, to say yes to the pain, the struggle, the imperfection of life, because only by affirming our hardships can we transform them into something meaningful. We then met the Ubermensch, not as a tyrant or superior being, but as an ideal of what we could become if we stopped living second-hand lives. The Ubermensch is someone who creates their own values, lives authentically, and rises above the herd, not to dominate others, but to fully embody their truth. And finally, we looked into the mirror of eternal recurrence, the idea that you must live as if your life would repeat forever. A terrifying thought for those who drift passively through life, but a powerful challenge for those ready to take control, to live deliberately, to say yes to every moment with complete presence. Put together, these 7 ideas form a philosophy that terrifies institutions, unsettles traditions, and defies easy answers. Why? Because Nietzsche's work is a threat to anything built on blind obedience. It doesn't fit within religious doctrine. It doesn't serve political ideologies. It doesn't promote conformity. It does the opposite. It demands that you think for yourself, that you take full responsibility for your values, your choices, your fate. That's why society often dismisses Nietzsche as dangerous, extreme, or incomprehensible. Not because his ideas are wrong, but because they are uncomfortable. They ask you to abandon illusions, they strip away the safety nets, they offer no promises of salvation, only the raw power of self-transformation. But in that discomfort lies Nietzsche's true gift. If you're willing to wrestle with his ideas, to confront the fear, the doubt, the chaos, what you find on the other side is freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to become who you truly are. So I leave you with a question, not just to ponder, but to live. If you had to live your exact life over and over forever, would you? If not, what needs to change? What illusions do you still cling to? What values are truly yours? Nietzsche doesn't give you answers. He gives you the tools to find them yourself. He doesn't want followers. He wants individuals. He doesn't want you to believe. He wants you to become. So take these ideas not as gospel, but as provocations. Let them challenge you. Let them guide you deeper into yourself. Because once you understand Nietzsche, not just with your mind, but with your life, you don't just think differently, you live differently. And that's the most dangerous thing of all.